Dealing with the condition itself is not enough.
Dear Mr. Massa, I'm just trying to mind my own business. What's the matter? It's just another day, another black king captured. I'm about to lose my brain, stuck inside this ghetto rapture. I got a lot of smoke. If you want it, you can have it. They want a hat trick, but this is black girl magic. Ain't talking about the kind that'll make you disappear, but I'm talking about the power of the melanin within. Ain't looking for trouble, but I'ma say this one time. I put 2 dukes up if you try to touch mine. We still want justice for Samir and Trayvon. You say you don't see color, but racism ain't blind. They targeting little kids whose skin look just like mine. So I'm paranoid, it's a war zone outside. And I'm a black queen, so if you ask me to step out of my car, you gon' have to snatch me. Cause I ain't going no damn well. Had to spend my whole life living unfair. Ancestors got my back and they right here. You can never understand, it's a nightmare. Living in my black shoes by the black rules. You can keep your handshake, I don't dap coon. The white man to go nuts if he cash you. But you all on his side like a damn fool. Make it make sense.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
We are exploited. We are downtrodden.
Make it make
Queen.
We are
sense.
denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation
Queen.
away from us or aside from us is come together
Queen.
against the common enemy. Who taught you to hate the texture of your
Ahmadiyyah.
hair? Who taught you to hate the color of your skin?
Ahmadiyyah.
Parents, pay attention to the books, the school system, even to your little children. Lies mixed with wisdom. His skin too bright, so he was blind to the prison. My skin just right, so I collide with division. You trying to pray to God, but we tired of religion. No savior saving, we got to save our savings. We used to pay miss, how we gon' make the slave rich? But who's to blame, and tell me why you complaining? We need a team effort just to rule the nation. Like a bad relationship, missing communication. We missing moderation. They're trying to get a poison to my population. No reparations. I'm getting tired of Satan.
We are oppressed.
Queen.
I'm getting tired of waiting.
We are downtrodden.
Queen.
We are denied not only civil rights, but even human rights.
Ahmadiyyah.
So the only way we're going to get some of this
Ahmadiyyah.
oppression and exploitation.
Queen.
All right. Hello, everyone. Grand Rising. Grand Rising, everyone. Thanks for tuning back in once again to the original Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur show. I'm your host, Queen Ahmadiyyah Shakur, and this is your morning wake-up call. So as you're coming in, please feel free to go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Be sure to click that notification bell and click the word all so you're notified each time the Queen Goddess goes live. Okay, so with that all being said, let's see who is in here. All right. Vision for You is here. Pearly, DJ Big Six, Bronze Flat Power God. All right, the lovely T. Okay, so let's get into it. Jeff ATL. All right, Soul Sister said Queen's news is the only news I need to hear. It is all factual over here. Thank you, beloved. I appreciate you. All right, hello, Nessa G. Deronda. Okay, 504 NOLA. So let's get into it. Talk to me, I'll talk back. Shout out to my moderators for putting in work. I see you, Desmond. And shout out to all of my loyal royals. So let's get into it. Now, before we get started, hey, Claudette, before we get started, let's have a brief word from my sponsor at 12 Tribes.
Do not buy 12 Tribes on Earth hair growth oil and hair magic elixir unless you want super healthy, gorgeous hair that grows. They have a whole line of amazing hair growth products, including hair growth leave-in conditioner spray, hair growth shampoo, hair growth spray, and hair growth butter. I'm starting to sense a theme here. They include quality natural ingredients. They smell amazing, and you can see the results for yourself. So if you're looking for healthy hair growth for your natural or relaxed hair, try 12 Tribes on Earth today.
Okay, so you can purchase 12 Tribes hair oil at Etsy.com. Just look for Lisa Crafts, and you can also find it at Walmart.com. And don't forget that she has a beard oil for the men. Okay, so now with that all being said, let's get into it, honey, because Trump has been busy wreaking havoc. He has been busy wreaking havoc. So let's talk about it. So first of all, let me just say that Trump is absolutely trying to distract everyone from what's going on with the Epstein questions about the list and all of that. But even his own party
continues to ask about the Epstein files. Even his own party still has several questions. Okay, so we know what he's trying to do. This is nothing but a smoke screen. Since when does Trump give a darn about crime? When does he really care so much about crime? Let me tell you something. He does it because he's a criminal himself, as I've told you before, and he's hired criminals in his cabinets. Okay, people accused of assault and everything else. And also, in case you all didn't know, he actually did a prison swap, and he allowed a man into this country from Venezuela who killed 3 people. Okay, a triple murderer. We're going to talk about that in a minute, but let's get into this executive order where he has basically declared a crime emergency. I want y'all to pay attention. Trump is a whole fool. Okay, so now let's get into this. So Section 1, crime is out of control in the District of Columbia. Washington District of Columbia is our nation's capital and home to the central institutions of American governance. Yet rising violence in the capital now urgently endangers public servants, citizens, and tourists, disrupts safe and secure transportation and the proper functioning of the federal government, and forces the diversion of critical public resources toward emergency response and security measures. The city government's failure to maintain public order and safety has had a dire impact on the federal government's ability to operate efficiently, to address the nation's broader interests without fear of our workers being subjected to rampant violence. Do y'all hear this? Do y'all hear this? Now, we can't make this up, but clearly Trump can. He says the increase in violent crime in the heart of our republic has consequences beyond the individual tragedies that have dominated media coverage. Okay, so the crime is so rampant that it's not even being reported in the news. He said beyond the tragedies that have dominated media coverage. So they're showing the minuscule crime on TV, but not the serious crime, Trump. Make it all make sense. Such lawlessness also poses intolerable risk to the vital federal functions that take place in the District of Columbia. Violence and crime hamper the recruitment and retention of essential federal employees. They undermine critical functions of government and thus the well-being of the entire nation. He can't be serious. I want you all to pay attention. He's acting as though the crime is so bad in DC, it's destroying the fabric of the United States as a whole. Well, I'm sorry, but that's what he's doing. Okay, please pay attention. And so anyway, it goes on to say these conditions are disgraceful anywhere, but particularly in the capital of our nation and the seat of the federal government. Citizens, tourists, and federal workers deserve peace and security, not fear and violence. The smooth functioning of executive departments and agencies, courts, diplomatic missions, and the federal government demands an effective law enforcement mechanism capable of halting the precipitous rise in violent crime, not one that permits government workers to be violently attacked by mobs or fatally shot close to the federal buildings where they work. Now, you all do realize, of course, that he's targeting Black people with this foolishness. You all do remember that, right? Okay, this man's a whole darn felon himself. He's a whole felon himself. Now, the magnitude of the violent crime crisis places the District of Columbia among the most violent jurisdictions in the United States. In 2024, the District of Columbia averaged one of the highest robbery and murder rates of large cities nationwide. Indeed, the District of Columbia now has a higher violent crime, murder, and robbery rate than all 50 states. Regarding, now y'all know I'm a fact check this, okay, regarding the homicide rate in 2024 of 27.54% per 100,000 residents. It also experienced the nation's highest vehicle theft rate with 842.4 thefts per 100,000 residents, over 3 times the national average of 250.2 thefts per 100,000 residents. The District of Columbia is, by some measures, among the top 20% of the most dangerous cities in the world. Now, mind you, he didn't say in the United States, he said in the world. It's one of the 20 It's at the top 20% of the most dangerous cities in the world. Yeah, we're going to see about that. So as president, I have a solemn duty to take care that our laws are faithfully executed and a sacred responsibility to protect the safety and the security of the United States citizens who live in and visit our nation's capital, including federal workers who live or commute into the District of Columbia. These conditions cannot persist. We will make the District of Columbia one of the safest cities in the world, not the most dangerous. Now, it is a known fact that there is a lot of crime in DC, but it's also a known fact that the crime rate has decreased, okay, in the last year or two. As I showed you all yesterday, I determined that special conditions of an emergency nature exist that require the use of the Metropolitan Police Department of the District of Columbia, Metropolitan Police Force, are for federal purposes, including maintaining law and order in the nation's seats of government, protecting federal buildings, national monuments, and other federal property, and ensuring conditions necessary for the orderly functioning of the federal government. Don't you all think that he should have done something like this rather than now, but instead when they had that riot January the 6th at the nation's capital? Don't you all think this was the time to do something like that? Okay, well, of course, he wasn't the president, Biden was, but at the end of the day, he was the reason for the entire insurrection. Didn't he tell his people to go down there to the Capitol and fight, fight, fight? Okay, he literally caused a crime emergency in DC. Okay, and I didn't hear him showing any concern about the things that went on at the Capitol. And let's not forget how he basically pardoned over 1,500 people, and there were people killed during that entire thing. Let's not forget Ashley Babbitt and Officer Brian Sicknick, okay, who died days later after being attacked from a stroke. Okay, I find this also interesting, Trump. But anyway, let me continue. So, effective immediately, the mayor of the District of Columbia shall provide the services of the Metropolitan Police Force for federal purposes for the maximum period permitted under Section 740 of the Home Rule Act. Okay, I'm not going to read all of this. I think we've got the gist of it. But now let's talk about the Home Rule Act. Fusion says, Queen, Trump also going after Jimmy Barbecue, gang leader in Haiti. Really? I don't know who that is, beloved. But I'm sure that he is. Okay, so let's talk about the Home Rule Act of 1973. It allows the president to take control of DC police for 48 hours if he determines that special conditions of an emergency nature exist. 48-hour period can be extended if he notifies relevant congressional committees. Taking control for over 30 days must be passed into law. And let me just tell y'all, this is all smoke and mirrors. Like I said, Trump thinks he's really going down, but we will not be deterred. Okay. So with that all being said, let's go to one of these reports. Lights up, everyone, please. Wait a minute. Why am I getting an echo? Oh, okay. I see what I did. I accidentally opened up a second tab by mistake. I'm like, why do I hear an echo? Okay, so now let's get into it because the people are out there. Listen, it is chaos and drama. The people have started protesting and everything not far from the nation's capital. So let's get into it because they say he activated 800 National Guard. 800. I mean, it's
President Trump declaring a public safety emergency, saying he's activated 800 National Guard members in the nation's capital and has now placed the D.C. Police Department under federal control, saying that Attorney General Pam Bondi will, quote, take command. This takeover is happening as the president says that crime in the city is out of control, despite officials saying that certain crimes in the city have hit a 30-year low. Watch this.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. If necessary, we're going to move service members directly to joining the guardsmen, and that'll take place very rapidly.
CNN's Brian Todd is closely following this story for us. So, Brian, take us through President Trump's order and what else he's threatening, because he says he might activate the military.
That's right, Boris. He says he's kind of reserving the option to activate additional military units in Washington, D.C. if need be. He then later said he didn't think he would need them, but he's going to keep that option open. He is also considering at least expanding the National Guard deployment to other cities. He named Chicago and New York City. But let's see how this plays out in Washington, D.C. first. We do have some source reporting from three sources familiar with the matter saying that both the D.C. Mayor Muriel Bowser and the D.C. Metropolitan Police Chief Pamela Smith did not know of President Trump's announcement prior to when he made the announcement. They were caught kind of unaware of this prior to when he made the announcement this morning. As you see the graphic there, the president plans to mobilize some 800 National Guard members on the city streets here in D.C. to put the D.C. police under federal control. That is unprecedented, by the way. A president of the United States has never taken control of the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department before. Also, FBI agents are going to be patrolling with the police department here. That is also a very rare occurrence, according to our sources. It's very rare for FBI agents to patrol with police in a local police in any given city. Already some pushback here in the district from this. But let's first hear from President Trump. I'll get to the pushback in a moment, but here's what President Trump had to say about what he hopes the police could do in the city.
See, they fight back until you knock the hell out of them, because it's the only language they understand. You can see they want to get at it. And they're standing there and people are spitting in their face and they're not allowed to do anything. But now they are allowed to do whatever the hell they want.
So the president promising a very tough crackdown on crime here in D.C. And again, we mentioned some pushback to this. The D.C. Attorney General, Brian Schwab, has issued this statement, quote, "The administration's actions are unprecedented, unnecessary, and unlawful. There is no crime emergency in the District of Columbia. Violent crime in D.C. reached historic 30-year lows last year and is down another 26% so far this year. We are considering all of our options and will do what's necessary to protect the rights and safety of district residents." Attorney General Schwab is correct there when he says that crime is down in D.C. According to the D.C. Metropolitan Police, violent crime is down 26%, assaults with a dangerous weapon down 20%, robberies down 29%, and crime overall is at historic lows in this city, Boris. We also got some pushback from Council Member Charles Allen of the...
Do you all hear this? So he is straight up lying. Do you hear this? The crime is at historic lows. Like Trump he is out of his mind. Okay, a lie doesn't care who tells it.
DC City Council saying this is doing this under the guise of public safety is, quote, wrong. It's an extreme, outrageous, and dangerous move for the city. That is the first member of the DC City Council to push back in earnest to this move. Boris?
Brian Todd, thank you so much for the reporting. Danny?
Boris, thank you. Former FBI Deputy Director and CNN Senior Law Enforcement Analyst Andrew McCabe joins us now. We also have former U.S. Attorney and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Harry Litman. Thank you, gentlemen, for breaking down this very important story. Andrew, I want to start with you. From your perspective, is the purpose of this action purely to have just a massive show of force on the streets of D.C., or in practice, is there anything that will be done differently with the police department under federal control?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say exactly what the purpose is, right? So we know what the ostensible purpose is, the facts that, or the, I don't want to even call them facts, the information that the president cited during his press conference, which of course included comparing DC to places like Baghdad and Bogota, Colombia, where we have no accurate reporting about what their crime statistics are. The fact is that the crime situation in DC is at all-time lows. They were at a 30-year low last year, and it's down an additional 26% this year. So there is no crime emergency per se in the city. So when you When you understand that, to try to divine what the purpose is of this deployment of National Guard assets, what this reallocation of things like FBI agent resources to patrol the streets of DC, it really it raises some important questions. Like,
imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
What is it? Why this production? Why this kind of Potemkin village of criminal intervention in a city? What is this designed to distract us from? I don't know that I can answer that for you here, but in effect, taking a federal official and simply calling him the head of the Metropolitan Police Department changes nothing within the Metropolitan Police Department. Those sworn officers are the only people who are legally authorized to enforce the law outside of the federal properties in DC. Most of DC is not federal property. It is the property of the District of Columbia. And I should also say, to deprive the people, the citizens of the District of Columbia, of the representatives who they elected. They elect a mayor, they elect a city council, they are entitled to hold those folks responsible for the crime situation and every other situation in DC. To completely replace that sort of authority with some specious federal authority is really concerning, I think, as a democratic matter, a democracy issue writ large.
Harry, I want to bring you to the conversation. Aside from what this may look like on the ground today or tomorrow in DC, it seems like the thing that actually also caught a lot of people's attention, and Brian Todd just mentioned it, was this warning that President Trump basically said that this sort of action might come to other cities across the country. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's really an important point, because it's true that he has somewhat greater authority, a fair bit greater authority in DC itself, though everything I think that Andy says is accurate. That goes away when he's talking about Chicago, when he's talking about Los Angeles. And by the way, he mentioned only, of course, Democratic cities. The two highest cities in murder rates are both Republicans. They didn't come out. But there, a whole survey of different laws come into effect, including the really important law. It's a mouthful, Posse Comitatus Act, that says you can't do this on the streets. You can't bring in the military. So to the extent he's trying to align it with some grand showing of what he's going to do in Democratic cities, he's going to be up against much higher legal barriers.
Andrew, we heard pushback, as Brian Todd reported, just after the announcement came, but there wasn't as much pushback from, say, the DC mayor leading up to this. I'm curious if there's anything in particular about this, again, going into practice that worries you, especially if we might potentially see American citizens in any sort of confrontation with, say, FBI agents or National Guard members.
Yeah, there's a lot that worries me about this. First of all, it's hard to explain the lack of pushback by DC authorities right now. I suspect they're probably trying to get their heads around this entire thing, because it's absolutely so bizarre. Apparently, they had no notice of it. There is also the matter of congressional funding, which basically took away $1 billion from DC this year. So the Senate is trying to restore that. The House is not willing. So there's a very kind of compelling financial / political issue that they're trying to navigate at the same time, which might be having an impact on how vocally they want to push back. Nevertheless, you are now looking at things like having hundreds of FBI agents, quote unquote, patrol the streets of DC. This is not something that FBI agents do. They're not trained for it. They don't plan on that. They don't have that sort of legal authority intrinsically. To understand exactly how FBI agents are going to start making arrests around DC, again, on areas that are not federal property, that is not something that has been worked out in any way. And now let's think about the opportunity cost. All of those counterterrorism cases, counterintelligence cases, criminal cases, crimes against children, all the things that we rely on FBI agents to protect us from every day, that work is not getting done because you've taken that resource, some percentage of it, and shifted it to patrolling DC, which
He's absolutely correct, because this is also ignorant and stupid. Excuse me. The FBI should not be boots on the ground walking around on patrol. Okay, that is just so idiotic. That is so stupid. Who's out here looking for the traffickers? Okay, who's out here doing that? This is how you know Trump has no darn sense. Okay, and then they're walking up to people on their porches and asking for ID and all kind of stuff, knocking on doors for what? For what? Why should people have to identify themselves when they're at their own darn house? Okay, I tell them, come back when you have a warrant. That's what I tell them. I'm not showing you anything. Come back when you have a warrant. Deuces.
Is something that the FBI does not do and really cannot do in its current state competently or safely for themselves or for the citizens of the district. So really questionable decisions here that will have major impacts on the safety and security of this country.
Harry, just really quickly, I want to get your perspective on this, because President Trump also said that he will bring in the military if needed, essentially beyond the National Guard. Just a quick thought. How much authority does he have to use the military in this sort of way?
Some authority to use it temporarily with congressional notification. So DC is a lot weaker here, but Congress comes to the fore. They're the ones that passed the DC Home Control Act. 48 hours, then has to notify, 30 days, then Congress has to pass. So basically, he's taking a very limited grant of authority and making a big political case with it, exactly as Andrew specifies.
It's going to be a very interesting 30 days to come in the nation's capital. Andrew McCabe, Harry Littman, thank you both for breaking
all a hot mess. Okay, this is you all's president, people. This is you all's president. Okay, so now with that all being said, let's go to what Judge Janine Pirro had to say, because she had a whole lot to say. She had a whole lot to say. Hold on, let me pull this up. Likes up, everyone, please like and share. And she, listen, this lady is completely racist in my opinion, and she's doing all that she can to kiss Trump's butt. Okay, I mean, you know, a lot of people are. Okay, because here's the thing. Nobody is telling Trump, you know, Trump is surrounded with his idiotic self. He's surrounded by a bunch of yes men and women. Nobody's talking sense into this fool. Okay? Nobody is talking any sense to him. Everybody's just sitting there nodding their head in agreement with every foolish thing that he says. Because if anyone was talking sense to him, he wouldn't be doing any of this. It's all so ridiculous and chaotic. And this is going to cause problems. And in my opinion, Trump just wants to declare martial law. Okay, do you all think he's going to stop with DC? You all think it's going to stop here? And I guarantee you that he's only doing this in Black neighborhoods. We know that. Okay, we know that from the talking points. And then also, there are helicopters. There were Black people saying that there were helicopters flying over their neighborhoods. Okay, also crazy.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and thank you, Madam Attorney General, and to all my partners here. We all want the same thing. We all want a safe city. We want a safe capital. We want to be able to bring our families here. We want to be able to come and enjoy the history that makes this place great. And unfortunately, we are not in that position right now. And Mr. President, I want to thank you for taking the step that we need right now to make criminals understand that they are not going to get away with it anymore. And I'm not going to stand here and go over and over the cases. But what I can tell you is this. I see too much violent crime being committed by young punks who think that they can get together in gangs and crews and beat the hell out of you or anyone else. They don't care where they are. They can be in DuPont Circle, but they know that we can't touch them. Why? Because the laws are weak. I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16, 17 years old and you have a gun. I convict someone of shooting another person with an illegal gun on a public bus in the chest. Intent to kill?
Now, here's what I want you all to pay attention to. Here's what I want y'all to pay attention to. She said, I can't touch you if you're 14, 15, 16. That's ironic to me because the Epstein list was about people touching people that were 14, 15, and 16. And then, but just listen to what else she says. I find it all interesting.
I convict him. And you know what the judge gives him? Probation. Says you should go to college. We need to go after the DC Council and their absurd laws. We need to get rid of this concept of, no cash bail. We need to recognize that the people who matter are the law-abiding citizens. And it starts today. But it's not going to end today because the president is going to do everything we need to do to make sure that these emboldened criminals understand we see you, we're watching you, and we're going to change the law to catch you. And my final note is this. These kids understand that the jurisdiction is through the state attorney general, Brian Schwab. I did a poster of the young man from Doge who was beaten bloody with a severe concussion, a broken nose. And then I did a poster of what happens to those kids because I can't arrest them. I can't prosecute them. They go to family court and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts.
Now, what's interesting about that is she said they go to family court and they get to do yoga and arts and crafts. Well, isn't that the same damn thing that Ghislaine Maxwell is doing at the cushy prison that she's now been transferred to? Okay. I mean, it's the irony of it all. Do they hear themselves? These people are complete idiots. They are complete idiots. Now, let me go to this next clip of her talking trash yet again.
Here with more, U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Judge Jeanine Pirro, friend of the program. Young punks. So you can't, a 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kid shoots somebody. You can't do a thing. Somebody gets convicted of shooting something. They get probation and a lecture to go to college.
Yes, unfortunately, Sean, and it's good.
Donna says this is targeting young black men. This is over a 19-year-old who worked for Doge called Big Balls that was attacked. Yes, I know. I spoke about that the other day. But also the interesting thing is they now want to give Big Balls, as they call him, they want to give him the Congressional Medal of Freedom. Okay, we're going to get into that momentarily.
To see you again. That is my experience, and that is what the DC Council, which is passing the laws that pretty much control the district here. And the President Trump is rightfully declared an emergency crisis of crime and deployed the National Guard, the ATF, the DEA, the FBI, so that criminals know now that we see them, we are watching them, and we're going to make them accountable. But make no mistake, Sean, this is just the beginning. Today was, as the president called it, Liberation Day. But we are now in the process of bringing to the attention of law-abiding citizens, not just in D.C., but throughout the country, that we're not going to tolerate crime that is out of control in the nation's capital. This is the shining city on the hill that our forefathers talked about. This is the place where Ronald Reagan talked about looking up to. And in the end, it is an incredibly violent area. And, whether crime is up or down, they want to pat themselves on the back and say, gee, it's great. It's not as bad as it used to be.
And I want to mention this to you all also. So when she was talking about these teenagers who commit these crimes, and then they go to family court and they get probation, and then their judge tells them to go to college. She was upset about that because, don't tell them to go to college. She'd rather see them go to prison. Well, the interesting thing about that is this. I'm sure she doesn't have that same smoke for the people who look like her, for the teen thugs who look like her. For example, the ones who beat the crap out of that black teenager just days ago. Okay, I'm sure she would have no problem with that. And let's talk about Brock Peters. Okay, do you all remember him? Wasn't that his name? The white guy who raped the woman behind the Brock Turner, that was his name, Brock Turner. He raped the woman behind the dumpster, and his father said it was just 20 minutes of fun or something like that. And then the judge didn't want to sentence him to jail time or prison time because he was a college student. You see, that's the kind of things they do for their teenagers. Okay? Now, I'm not condoning violence or crime by any stretch, but at the end of the day, wouldn't it be better if they perhaps put them in some sort of diversion program, so they could learn some sense, so they could, get counseling and whatnot, because that's what they do to people who look like them. Okay? But our people are always so demonized and vilified. And just maybe there wouldn't be so much crime, okay, in the Black community if they would stop depriving us of resources, if they would stop being so oppressive, okay, and subjecting us to things that other people don't have to go through, okay, at the end of the day. Like, it makes no sense. So anyway, let's let her continue because she thinks she's cooking right about now.
It is horrific. And the reason that press room today, and the president commented on it, was so packed is because those reporters in that room, and it was packed to the gills, experienced crime themselves. And some of the questions had to do with that very thing. We've got an area where criminals are emboldened for a variety of reasons. They know these young gangs, or as they're called here, crews, they know that if they're 14, 15, 16, or 17, they are below the age of criminal responsibility unless they commit the crime of murder, rape one, armed robbery, or burglary in the first degree. And that means if you shoot someone and they don't die, I don't even get the case as a prosecutor. And understand, I'm not just a federal prosecutor, I'm the local DA, so to speak, here for DC. All of these cases go to family court, the 14 through 17-year-olds. And those cases go to family court, where the focus is rehabilitation. And they talk about ice cream socials and yoga. And even if they're 19 and I get them in my court and I get a conviction, go on a bus with an illegal gun, a bus that's full of people and a family, you take a gun and you shoot someone in the chest, we get the conviction, we take it all the way. The judge says, I'm going to give you probation because the D.C. Council has given him that right. And so we've got to repeal these laws of the left-leaning D.C. Council, one member of whom I just indicted recently, and we've got to make this place safe for the people in the district. And it's not just because of the kid who worked for Doe's recently, who was mugged by 12 and 13-year-olds and 14 and 15-year-olds. It's not just because of the intern who got shot and caught and killed in the middle of crossfire in a decent area of D.C., or the intern who went out for McDonald's at 10:30 and who ends up getting shot, or the kids from the Israeli embassy who get shot and killed. I mean, this is a regular course of conduct. And unless and until we get our hands on them, and unless and until we have the ability to punish them, they are emboldened and they are laughing at us.
What about other cities, violent cities, Chicago and New York City and L.A. and other cities that have defund, dismantled, no bail laws?
Well, look, our murder rate is like 5 times at least higher than New York City. We've got one of the highest murder rates in the country. We were the 4th largest a couple years ago. It continues. And what we've got here are people that are not even making complaints about the quality of life crimes, whether it's shoplifting or damaging property or an attempt at a carjacking. They don't even call the police. We're not even seeing most of the crime that's occurring. And the clearance rate on homicides, Sean, is a joke. These cases are not being solved. And so the message is, if you want to commit a crime, do it in D.C., because they're not going to solve the case. Bring in someone younger to commit the crime, and we'll end up letting you go because the U.S. attorney can't get her hands on you. That's all going to change under President Trump. We're going to make D.C. safe, and we're going to make it beautiful again. And make no mistake, this president has a constitutional right to protect the people in this district and to make us safe. And until he came along, it was just going along and, oh, yeah, maybe it got a little better this year, but it's never good enough. It's never peaceful enough. And that's the problem with D.C. and these apologists who say, oh, we're not as bad as we used to be. Nonsense. It's time for us to get rid of crime and make criminals accountable. And that D.C. council, those laws that they pass are absurd. They are defense-oriented. They are criminal-focused, and the criminals know it.
You know, we miss you here at Fox, but I know this is where your heart, your passion, and your real purpose is, and what you were born to do.
Okay, now didn't she say, excuse me, didn't she just say that DC has the highest crime rate? Didn't she just say that? Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't I just hear this fool say that DC has the highest crime rate? And then D. Major Skelly says, Queen, wasn't she so supportive of the Daniel Penny guy? Yes, she was, and so was Trump. Trump invited him to the White House. Yeah, of course they were. And he's nothing but a whole thug. He did not have to kill that man. That man was not a danger or a threat. He was talking loudly and aggressively. He did not put his hands on anyone, nor did he threaten to. But it was okay for him to murder that black homeless man, okay? They held him a hero. That's what they do. And when she's talking about these 12 and 13-year-olds out here committing crime, well, I don't doubt that. But what she isn't talking about is the ones that look like her that are 12 and 13. They're also out here committing crime. Do you all remember the little 12 and 13-year-old that ran away from a group home and broke into a former police officer's house, stole his guns, and got into a shootout with the police? But the police made sure not to kill them. They literally were on camera saying, oh, please, oh, please, oh, please. I don't want to shoot you. I don't want to shoot you. That's what the officer was saying to himself as he lay in the bushes for cover. And then they ended up having to shoot the girl who was the older one. Okay, the baby-faced thugs. That's what I called them at the time. But they made sure not to shoot them to kill them. You think they would have given the same grace had they been black teenagers with guns? Of course not. But here's the thing. She's lying. Okay, Washington, D.C. does not have the highest crime rate. Okay, Memphis, Tennessee does. And then next comes St. Louis, Missouri, and then Baltimore, Maryland. All right. So she's a liar who lies. They have the most violent crime in Tennessee, Memphis, Tennessee, to be exact. So anyway, with that all being said, I'm just like so over it at this point. Now let's go to these protesters. Oh, no. Before we talk about the protesting that's going on there in DC, let's talk about big balls, because that's why her and Trump are so mad. Big balls. And Trump's really not that upset, in my opinion. Trump is just doing all of this to distract us from the Epstein conversation. That's all that is. Now, listen to this. An ex-Doge staffer known as Big Balls could end up receiving the highest civilian honor in the United States, placing him in the company of luminaries such as Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King Jr., and Mother Teresa. Are y'all serious? I want y'all to pay attention. This is all crazy. 2 weeks after 19-year-old Edward Cortestein was viciously assaulted during a carjacking in Washington, D.C., the White House says it would consider giving the administration official a Presidential Medal of Freedom for his bravery. Now, I'm going to tell you this. At the end of the day, you know, I'm sorry the young man got jumped or whatever happened to him. Clearly, he didn't deserve it. But here's the thing. Do you all remember that black guy? His last name was Shaw. You all know who I'm talking about. The guy who stopped the Waffle House shooter. Y'all know who I'm talking about? Hold on, let me look him up real quick. He stopped the Waffle House shooter some years ago. James Shaw. That's him. James Shaw. Hold on. Now, did they give him that same medal? Let me see. So they gave him the Hall of Valor Medal of Honor, Silver Star, which is a U.S. military award. Now, I knew he got an award, but this one they want to give this young man is the highest honor. Okay? The one they want to give this young man is the highest honor. This man, James Shaw, literally wrestled an AR-15 away from the hands of a would-be assassin, a would-be killer. Now, I'm not saying the young man doesn't deserve something, maybe a pat on the back, okay? Maybe a pat on the back, all right? A certificate at best. But the Congressional Medal of Freedom? Ha! This is all ridiculous, okay? I just want you all to pay attention. This is absolutely ridiculous in my opinion, okay? It's not that serious. But let me continue. They say the issue was raised during a White House briefing in which Press Secretary Carolyn Leavitt invited MAGA pundit Benny Johnson to ask the first question, as has become customary under the new administration. Now, after talking about his own personal experiences with violence in D.C., thanking Leavitt for Trump's actions and slamming Democrats, Johnson asked if the president would consider Cordestein, better known for his online nickname Big Balls, for a Presidential Medal of Freedom in view of his heroic actions just a few blocks from this building, saying perhaps it's something he would consider. That's what Leavitt replied. Now, Cordestein, who helped Elon Musk earlier this year to slash the federal government and now works with the Social Security Administration, was left bloodied after he was approached by teenagers at around 3 a.m. in DuPont Circle, a lively neighborhood in Northwest Washington. A 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy were subsequently arrested and remain in juvenile jail as the investigation continues. But the ex-Doge staffer was elevated to hero status in MAGA world after the president after the president posted a gruesome photo from the crime scene on his Truth Social account before threatening a federal takeover of Washington, D.C. to lower the crime rate. Last week, Republican Senator Mike Lee even posted a creepy AI-generated clip of Trump placing the Medal of Freedom around Cordestein's neck. Trump's threats became reality on Monday when he announced that he would bring in the National Guard and federalize the D.C. Metropolitan Police to restore law and order. Despite the crime rate being at a 30-year low and falling across all categories. Now, all categories, mind you. Speaking to reporters on Tuesday, Leavitt said that about 850 officers and agents had been surged across the district. However, she also revealed that despite the unprecedented presence, only 23 arrests were made, including for low-level crimes such as fare evasion and traffic infringements. Do y'all hear this? But they got so much crime. Do y'all hear this? Fare evasion and traffic infringements. This is why we have the National Guard and the feds there. They say last night these arrests consisted of homicide, firearms offenses, possession with intent to distribute narcotics, fare evasion, lewd acts, stalking, fleeing to elude a vehicle, no permits, driving under the influence, reckless driving, and a bench warrant, as well as possession of a high-capacity magazine. Now, critics seized on the numbers to claim that the president's claims of Washington, D.C. as a hotbed of crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor were grossly exaggerated. With 850 agents making 23 arrests, that's a 37-to-1 ratio of force results. This is what someone wrote on X, okay? They said this isn't a law enforcement surge. It's political theater on a federal budget. That's exactly what it is. The White House, however, has hit back. While Trump supporters say that Cordestein is emblematic of DC's crime problem, giving him a Presidential Medal of Freedom would appease Trump's base and place the 19-year-old in the company of recipients who have made an especially meritorious contribution to the security or national interest of the United States, such as world peace, cultural or other significant public or private endeavors. Over the years, this has included presidents such as Jimmy Carter and Lyndon B. Johnson. Are y'all serious right now? Are y'all serious right now? This is all so crazy. Now, I'm going to show you the picture of big balls that Trump posted to Truth Social. This is a hot mess. There he is right there. He's all bloody. You know, I hope he's recovered. I'm sure he has. For the most part, this was 2 weeks ago. But here's the thing. Now, mind you, he likely has all of that blood on him because of his nose bleeding, I'm sure. And I'm not trying to minimize his injuries. All I'm saying is there's people that have suffered a whole lot worse, and they were absolutely doing something heroic, and they weren't even offered such an honor, is all I'm saying. And although even though they gave James Shaw the Hall of Valor Medal of Honor Silver Star, he didn't get the highest award, okay? And I'm not saying that he should have, but what I am saying is this young man damn sure doesn't deserve it, not just for that. Okay, he hasn't contributed anything to world peace, has he? Or did I miss the memo? Now, let's talk about the protesting going down under this supposed federal crackdown, which is nothing more and a smokescreen.
DC leaders, including the mayor, Muriel Bowser, pushed back on the administration's claims that crime is out of control in our nation's capital. We just heard there from Tom, but violent crime is actually down sharply in the past 2 years after increasing during the pandemic. Just this past January, the Justice Department touted the fact that violent crime reached a 30-year low in 2024. So let's bring in News Nation's Joe Khalil, who is live for us there on the streets of Washington, D.C. Joe, we have yet to hear from the mayor or from the D.C. Council about this takeover. But what are residents that you're speaking with? What are they telling you?
Well, we know that there is going to be some significant pushback to this idea in Washington, D.C. It is no secret, one of the more progressive cities, districts in the entire country. And just as President Trump was speaking at 10 a.m. Eastern time this morning, you had a gathering here of anywhere from 100 to 200 demonstrators, protesters that were really pushing back, saying that they don't want this. They don't think they need federal law enforcement to take over what is in D.C. right now. This is where the protest was. It sort of dissipated, only a handful of people left. And just to give you some perspective, we're just a couple of blocks away from the White House. This actually was Black Lives Matter Plaza, which was home to a lot of protests a couple years ago. The administration has since paved over that sign. But what we heard from people was sort of an echo of what Tom laid out in terms of the numbers there. There is a downward trend, which obviously is a good thing in terms of virtually every major crime statistic in Washington, D.C. Having said that, there are still obviously issues with the crime. We've seen anecdotally that there are business owners, that there are people who've experienced crime that feel that some areas of the city are simply not safe. But what we were hearing from the protesters here today was they're not sure that the solution to that problem is to have the administration federalize their local law enforcement. And the other element to this is the homelessness issue. We talked to a homeless advocate who said, look, there are a lot of people who, as cost of living has gone up, have fallen into homelessness. He says there's a level of dignity that he hopes the administration treats the homeless population in D.C. here with. And again, the same concern that they're wondering whether or not this is the real solution to the problem of homelessness here in D.C. Take a listen to just some of what we heard today.
People that are homeless have befallen certain circumstances. I put them in that position. Could just as easily, many people are just 1 or 2 paychecks away from being maybe on the streets. I would say we're called to be a just, merciful people. I see the people, I know the guys out there, I know the women out there. The more you get to know them, you realize that they are us. They are who we are. Don't be afraid of people who you are. Open up, be open to them. You'll be surprised at what you're going to.
Let me just pause this for a second to ask you guys, do you all hear them singing in the background, talking about we shall not be moved? Are they serious right about now? Do y'all hear this crap? Why are they in the background singing old Negro spirituals? I have several questions. Okay, this is not it, Black people. Really? Like a tree that's planted by the water, we shall not be moved? Is this 1960? Okay, I'm gonna need them to change it up. That's all I'm saying. Okay. Creations videos comment said that sounds like a Black lady. It is. That's what I'm talking about. What in the world, lady? Please stop. Okay, Dorana said, fix it, Jesus. Oh my goodness, they are not. This is not it. See, this is why we can't get anywhere, okay, collectively as a people. Because they get out there and protest, and then you're singing Negro spirituals. This is so 1960s, but let's let them continue. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't be laughing. I guess they're doing what they think is best, I guess.
Fine. So a variety of different concerns there, Nicole. We're going to head over to a different area of the district where you do have some businesses that have experienced some crime, and we're going to hopefully hear from some of those folks and how they feel about this. But again, I think there is, just from the people who live here, there is going to be.
Miss Sheila said, yes, they should be singing, y'all gonna make me lose my mind up in here. Oh my God. That's exactly what they should be singing, beloved, okay? To let them know they're standing 10 toes down and standing on business.
Some significant pushback to that. We've been told by some protest leaders here this morning that this is certainly not going to be the last demonstration that they put forward here in response to what they've just seen come out of the White House today.
Yeah, certainly expecting some pushback. All right, Joe Khalil, Live Force, they are in D.C. as well. Joe, thank you.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our news.
I am completely done. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention, honey. I want y'all to pay attention. Now let's go to what the DC Mayor Muriel Bowser has to say about all of it, and then we're going to talk about how now, reported just minutes ago, this idiot Trump is now talking about sending in the National Guard to Oakland, California. Okay, see, I want you all to pay attention. He's starting one state at a time, one city at a time. Okay, that's what he's doing. Now he wants to take over Oakland, California. And just so you know, their crime rate is down also. Okay, because I've been checking the stats. All right, I've been checking the stats. So, honey, this is all a whole mess. Meanwhile, his own party is still talking about Epstein.
If you're still using a plastic or wooden cutting board, you need to hear.
I've said before, and I'll repeat, that I believe that the president's view of DC is shaped by his COVID era experience during his first term. And it is true that those were more challenging times related to some issues. It is also true that we experienced a crime spike post-COVID, but we worked quickly to put laws in place and tactics that got violent offenders off our streets and gave our police officers more tools, which is why we have seen a huge decrease in crime because of those efforts. We have been able to reverse that 2023 crime spike. This year, crime isn't just down from 2023, it's also down from 2019, before the pandemic, and we're at a 30-year violent crime low. We're not satisfied. We haven't taken our foot off the gas, and we continue to look for ways to make our city safer. We know, however, as most have heard from the president's press conference, that he has prerogatives in DC, unlike anywhere else in the country, including his authority given by our home rule charter to require the mayor, to require me to supply services of the Metropolitan Police Department. And he also has control and the ability to deploy the National Guard. But let me be clear, as our home rule charter is also clear, and the president's executive order restates. Chief Pamela Smith is the chief of the Metropolitan Police Department, and its 3,100 members work under her direction. The Home Rule Charter requires the mayor to provide the services of MPD during special conditions of an emergency, and we will follow the law. Though there's a question about the subjectivity of that declaration. In fact, the chief has already provided a high-level liaison and point of contact with the federal government and made those initial contacts. The executive order is also clear that the president has delegated his authority to make requests of us to Attorney General Pam Bondi. I have reached out to Attorney General Bondi and hope to schedule a meeting soon. My message to residents is this. We know that access to our democracy is tenuous. That is why you have heard me and many Washingtonians before me advocate for full statehood for the District of Columbia. We are American citizens. Our families go to war. We pay taxes and we uphold the responsibilities of citizenship. And while this action today is unsettling and unprecedented, I can't say that given some of the rhetoric of the past, that we're totally surprised. I can say to DC residents that we will continue to operate our government in a way that makes you proud. We will balance our budgets. We will deploy our services. Our kids are going to start school on August 25th. And we will work with the federal government to do the things that they should do for our city.
Morning, everybody. It's DJ NV. Just allow.
This is a darn shame. Absolutely a shame. Okay, so let's go to the next clip, and we're going to talk about Oakland in a minute.
FBI and DEA agents, some wearing masks, bulletproof vests, seen patrolling the streets of Washington, D.C.'s Georgetown neighborhood. And that Trump move is coming all really into clearer focus. Just as it is becoming into clearer focus, it's also raising new questions of which city is next. So first to D.C., the National Guard were seen at the Washington Monument. As well, we've also seen law enforcement personnel with the Department of Homeland Security and the U.S. Marshal Service taking part in traffic stops, and U.S. border agents on patrol at D.C.'s Union Station, the major hub for train travel there. All of this part of the president's crime crackdown, he says, in that city, a city he's tried to portray as being overrun by criminals, despite, again, the statistics and what the math and numbers say, which is the city has seen a 26% drop in violent crime from this time last year. With hundreds of federal law enforcement now on the streets of D.C., the FBI says 23 arrests were made overnight. And according to the FBI director, FBI agents were involved in nearly half of those arrests. CNN's Elena Treen is at the White House for us this morning, and a very different day it is this morning. What are you hearing today?
Yeah, I mean, as you mentioned, Kate, we have now really seen this ramped up presence of federal law enforcement in the streets and really at these high trafficked tourist spots. That is what we're hearing from our conversations with people here at the White House, where they want these federal law enforcement agents to be focused. So you mentioned we saw the National Guard. We actually saw 5 armored personal carriers near the Washington Monument on Tuesday evening. This comes after the National Guard came in on Tuesday. But then, of course, you showed those images of people in the streets in Georgetown and all of these areas that we know where there's a lot of traffic, not necessarily, though, the areas we know where crime is the highest place.
Just so you guys know, Georgetown in DC is one of the safer neighborhoods, okay? It's one of the safer neighborhoods. So that makes no sense.
Like Anacostia and others. And we've heard some criticism of that approach. So we're going to have to see really how this all continues over the next 30 days, because that is another key question, of course, is how long are we actually going to see this, and how effective is this going to be, this entire federal takeover? We know that the president has until mid-September. After that point, the White House has said that they are going to reevaluate what this process looks like.
Now, let me say this. This is just my opinion. So Georgetown, like I said, it's one of the safer areas. And, you know, they have a lot of Black presence, but even though it's been gentrified and there's white people there as well, of course, but this area has a lot of Black history, okay? Historical sites, you know, like the churches, the schools, and community organizations, okay, and all of that. So maybe that's why he's there, okay? And don't forget, I told you guys that they said that there were Black people saying that there were helicopters flying over their neighborhoods.
And of course, after that as well, he would need congressional approval to move forward. But a key thing that they're going to be...
Okay, I'm going to fast forward.
And get to the other side of this guy and make sure we elect the Democratic House so that we have a backstop to this authoritarian push.
So you heard.
If you walk in the mall, whether it's today or 2 weeks ago, you feel safe. You go in different neighborhoods and you start to feel less safe very quickly. 3 blocks from here is Union Station, where I unfortunately encountered a girl brawl at the metro stop just 2 weeks ago. And
not a girl brawl. Did y'all hear that? He said he encountered a girl brawl. Sir, please sit down somewhere. He sounds ridiculous.
And the things that I see at Union Station and smell at Union Station every day, every week, are troubling. And it's one of those things that allows Donald Trump to send this signal that he can. The thing I would say, while I don't like Donald Trump always finding something to declare an emergency that, by the way, always increases his powers, what a shock. If you want to solve.
And let me just say this, because like I told you all, you know, I fact check this stuff or whatever. Okay, Union Station is considered safe, even at night, sir. So what is he talking about? Let's continue.
One of the fastest things you can do is appoint judges, because the backlog that we have on prosecutions.
I want to bring in the others here, because you're bringing up a good point that this is about 2 things at once. How does crime exist? How bad is it? One question. What should you do about it? What's legal or just, et cetera, is another question. And I think Democrats are struggling answering.
I think that's true. I also think this tells us a lot about the dynamics inside the Trump administration, which is this is an incredible misuse of federal resources in terms of the deployment of having, you know, FBI agents, DEA agents, Border Patrol agents, walking beats in the city, which is something they're not trained to do. They don't have the equipment to do. They don't even have the legal powers to do. I mean, one of the things is, like, a lot of these federal agents don't actually have the powers to do the things that the Metropolitan Police does here.
Of course they don't. And that's exactly why, if they came knocking up on my door, walking up on my door and porch, talking about, let me see your ID, I tell them, come back when you have a warrant. Okay? They don't even have the authority.
And so it's interesting to me that someone like Kash Patel, the FBI director, is unwilling to say, actually, I have a really good plan for addressing crime in DC. Let me let me surge agents to a violent crime task force, to a fugitive task force, to a gang task force, and let the FBI agents do the things that they're supposed to do. And he's willing to let his agents be compromised for a political stunt.
I want to say that the police chief is tried to clarify the issue of just chain of command, who's in charge if you get, arrested in the district. Here they are answering that.
Are you answering to Terry Cole?
I answer to the mayor. I answer to Mayor Muriel Bowser. And let me just say this: let us not have any controversy with that, okay? Because I know people want to build upon and create division. We're here to work together with our federal partners, and that's what we're going to do.
We live in the dumbest timeline to say what the kids say. The fact that we have a president who is deploying federal forces on the streets of their capital city and meeting with their enemies for a listening tour, I'm talking about Vladimir Putin, shows how unserious this is to tackle what is, of course, a problem in every city across the world where you have many, many people together. There's always going to be crime. When you're talking about girl brawls, which I've seen too, we should have maybe better social media policies and better money for schools, not take away $1 billion from the DC budget, instead give money to schools to help children. And I'll also say that I live in DC in a historically Black neighborhood. And last night, there were helicopters whirring over my head. I'm a former war correspondent. I've spent many years in conflict, and I never thought that this would be something that I would feel in an American city, other than, of course, on January 6th.
Okay, didn't I tell you all that? Didn't I tell you all that? The Black people were saying there were helicopters flying over their heads. Okay, and then she brought up January the 6th. My point exactly. That's the only time that DC needed a military presence, when the insurrectionists showed up and took over the Capitol. Okay, the same people, mind you, that, again, he pardoned. But let me continue.
Which was, of course, as we know, the biggest episode of crime in the city. DC is a city where last year alone, it had the highest rates of tourism. I think historically, over 24 million people came to this city. People did not feel unsafe. And so this is a solution without the kind of problem that Donald Trump and his administration is presenting it as.
We're also
Okay, and this is only the beginning, people. Okay, this is going to get so much worse. Please pay attention at the end of the day. And mind you, now they have them patrolling Union Station. Union Station, like I said, it's considered as safe, and even at night. But here's the thing. Black people are the largest ethnic population there. Ethnic. 42% Black people. That's why they're there. Okay, that's why they're there. Now, and here is something further that the police chief says about the youth there.
When it comes to the juveniles, and I've said this, I'm very passionate about young people who are going to do great things in our city. And we have a lot of young people who are moving in that trajectory and in that space. The problem is we have a small subset of young people who do not. And I've said to parents, you need to know where your children are. We've talked about this over and over again. The mayor has enacted an executive order so that I, as the chief, can designate juvenile curfew zones around our city so that we can still give young people the opportunity to be able to be in those spaces based on what the laws and the regulations state, but we won't allow the disruptive behavior. And we've seen that time and time again. We've looked at intelligence, we've looked at data. Sometimes we look at things that are on social media to help guide our decisions. We want young people to be safe in our city. We want them to be able to enjoy the activities of our city, but we're not going to tolerate that kind of criminal activity that we've seen in the past. The juvenile curfew zone that was enacted, we've seen a decrease in our juvenile participation in those locations. I think when it comes
So she's basically saying they have it under control, okay? They have it under control. So Trump needs to sit down somewhere. Now let's go to what's going on with California. President Trump threatens to send National Guard to Oakland. Now here's what the city leaders Here's what the city leaders are saying about all of this. So President Donald Trump announced on Monday that he's placing Washington, D.C.'s police department under federal control. Now, and that he will deploy the National Guard as part of a crackdown on crime. He also mentioned Oakland as another city where the National Guard could be sent, saying that we're not going to allow a military occupation. Oh, I'm sorry, that's what the mayor said. Said she's not going to allow a military occupation. Well, you know, that might just prompt Trump to go ahead and really try to up the ante, because you know he doesn't like anyone denying him, okay, or saying what he can or can't do. Let me go to the footage.
We're not going to allow a military occupation of the city. That's what this president, Donald Trump, wants to do.
Mayor Barbara Lee says Oakland is ready to fight back if President Trump follows through on sending the National Guard to Oakland.
Then you have, of course, Baltimore and Oakland. We don't even mention that anymore. They're so far gone. We're not going to let it happen. We're not going to lose our cities over this.
Mayor Lee says the Trump administration has not formally notified the city of sending in the National Guard. Still, one of her concerns is the president calling out Oakland despite a double-digit drop in violent crimes.
This is part of his effort to dismantle democracy, to militarize cities where people live, which he does not recognize, understand, or see.
On Tuesday, the Oakland branch of the NAACP held a special meeting to discuss the concerns.
As you know, crime is down, and we are on the right track in Oakland.
Cynthia Adams, president of the Oakland branch of the NAACP, has concerns about military presence on the streets of Oakland. Retired Alameda County Superior Court Judge Brenda Harbin-Forte says there would be legal challenges to this proposal as well.
And we see it for what it is. He just wants to be able ultimately to declare martial law and to deprive citizens of our constitutional rights.
It's more than a threat. Professor David McEwen says California is a target of the Trump administration and that sending the National Guard to Los Angeles earlier this year is an important barometer of where the Trump administration is headed.
It showed a vulnerability about urban America and a threat that the Trump administration believes gives it a strong political advantage.
Oakland City Council member Carol Fife says Oakland does need help, but instead of the National Guard, federal funding for local police would do more.
We're looking for a nighttime metro unit in the downtown area. Fund that. We're looking for ambassadors throughout the entire city, particularly our business districts. Fund that.
In Oakland, Ansar Hassan, ABC 7 News.
So here's the thing. Trump is so full of it because if he's really so tough on crime and so concerned about crime, did you guys know that he allowed a triple murderer into the country? Let's talk about it. Trump frees U.S. Marine who murdered 3 people in Venezuela. Okay, this was during a prison swap. He allowed this man to come here. That's what Trump did. That's what Trump did. That's him right there. A whole thug. So let's talk about it. Donald Trump has freed a convicted triple murderer as part of a high-profile prisoner swap with Venezuela. Dahoud Hamid Ortiz, 54 years old, a former U.S. Marine who killed 3 people in Madrid in 2016. He was one of the 10 Americans released last Friday. Now, Ortiz, a dual Venezuelan-American citizen, had been tried, convicted, and sentenced to 30 years in Venezuela just last year, mind you. Now he's free and living in Orlando, Florida. Do y'all hear this? But he's tough on crime. He's worried about crime. Now, Diosdado Cabello, Venezuela's justice minister, confirmed that U.S. officials were told of his crimes and conviction, but yet they still wanted him released. Okay, do y'all hear this? But Trump's supposed to be targeting the violent thugs and all of this. He's targeting Black people. That's what he's doing. Hailing the success of the exchange, Marco Rubio, U.S. Secretary of State, said on Friday that the U.S. welcomes home 10 Americans. Every wrongfully detained American in Venezuela is now free and back in our homeland. This man is not wrongfully convicted. I did the research. Ortiz was reportedly not classified as wrongfully detained. Okay, absolutely not. He did what he was convicted of. So a photo released by the State Department showed Ortiz, who served 19 years in the Army and was awarded a Purple Heart for his injuries that he sustained in Iraq. They show him smiling on the plane, waving an American flag, as you can see. Okay, as you can see. Now, in 2023, Biden administration officials who knew of his detention in Venezuela decided not to accept him as part of a different prisoner swap. Okay, because they knew he was a whole cold-blooded murderer. In exchange for the release of 10 Americans, the Trump administration allowed the release of 252 Venezuelan men previously detained in the U.S. That it had sent to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. So Mr. Trump had invoked the wartime power, the Alien Enemies Act, to expel them in March of this year, claiming they were part of the Tren de Agua gang, okay, that was invading the U.S. at the behest of the Venezuelan government. Hundreds of Venezuelan men were quickly expelled to El Salvador's notorious CSOT prison, despite the Trump administration providing little evidence that those detained were actually even criminals. Do y'all hear this? Now, here's what this guy Ortiz did. I want y'all to pay attention because this case was highly publicized and supposedly shocked all of Spain in 2016. Okay, so Ortiz had driven from Germany to Madrid to track down Victor Salas, who was a lawyer who he believed was having an affair with his wife. Okay, I want y'all to pay attention. This man is a whole thug. So he entered the man's office and stabbed him to death, okay, along with 2 female employees. Well, first of all, let me say this. He actually stabbed the 2 female employees to death first because Mr. Salas hadn't gotten there yet. So he stabbed them and then waited, lay in wait, okay, for Mr. Salas. He also killed a taxi driver, and a client of the firm, okay, he killed the taxi driver who was a client of the firm because he mistook that man for being the lawyer. Now, he murdered these 3 people and didn't even get the person he went there to kill. This is how stupid he was, okay? He thought that man was the lawyer. Wrong place, wrong time. So he murdered 3 innocent people. And so anyway, according to Spanish media reports, Ortiz used a combat knife and an iron bar to stab and beat the victims. Can y'all think about how heinous that is to murder somebody like that? And then guess what he did? After he did all of this, he set the office on fire to hide his crimes. So after the brutal murders, he wrote an email to his sister-in-law admitting that he'd done terrible things and that no one will ever forgive me for what happened, he said. Okay? And so Mr. Salas, who had slept in that day, lucky for him, the lawyer that he was looking for, he had slept in that day and he arrived shortly after and discovered the 3 bodies. By then, Ortiz had fled to Germany and he was on his way to Germany. And this is just all so crazy. He was later caught in 2018, but Venezuela refused an extradition request by Spain. Okay? He fled to Germany and on to Venezuela. And that's when the Spanish authorities launched an international manhunt. Now, isn't this crazy? Isn't this crazy? But Trump let this man in our country? Nicole, thank you, beloved, for your contribution to the channel. I really appreciate you. Peace, love, and blessings. So in January of 2024, he was sentenced by a Venezuelan court to 30 years in prison for the triple murder. I'm sorry, but he should have gotten life. 10 years for each life that he took. That's crazy to me. But anyway, so after hearing of Ortiz's release, Mr. Salas said he now fears for his life. And of course he should. He said, we all feel like we've been deceived, betrayed, and let down. That's what he said on a Spanish TV program called Vamos a Ver. We feel deceived because David Hanid Ortiz was never a political prisoner. Okay? He was a murderer who was convicted and sentenced by the Venezuelan authorities. And so the case record makes it clear that he's a whole criminal. So they called on Marco Rubio and said, if this was an omission, please make amends, because it not only endangers me, but it endangers all Americans. Yeah, it absolutely does, because this man sounds like well, not even sounds like, he actually is a whole cold-blooded murderer. This man is roaming the streets of Florida. Okay? He's roaming the streets of Florida after he's murdered 3 innocent people in a heinous fashion, mind you. And then, like I said, set the building on fire. This is all so crazy. But so anyway, now let's talk about Dean Cain. Once in the chat, Robert said he's biting his nails. Okay, I'm sure he is. We should probably be biting ours too, beloved. Okay, and then those black people up there in DC singing old Negro spirituals, honey, they should have been singing "Nuck If You Buck." Okay, that's what they should have been darn singing, "Nuck If You Buck." Please pay attention. Now, with that being said, how many of you remember Dean Cain? Dean Cain, who played Superman in the TV show. Once in the chat, if you all remember this fool, because that's what he is, mind you. Do you all remember Dean Cain, the worst Superman ever? Okay, so this fool said he wants to join ICE. And he was on Piers Morgan the other day and got into a whole debate with this guy because the guy was telling him that he wasn't even trained to be a member of ICE. Like, dude, you're literally were Superman, okay? Anyway, let's go to that footage. Let's go to that footage. Hold on. I'm going to use an overlay for this. Oh, so nefarious. Ha! Robert said Mexican Superman. I know, right?
Extraordinary. Order directly from riverbendranch.com and use the promo code PEERS to get $20 off your first order. That's riverbendranch.com, code PEERS, P-I-E-R-S. But be prepared, once you taste it, you will definitely be coming back for more. Once again, that's riverbendranch.com, code PEERS.
Well, sure, because you have to have a border, you have to have rules and controlling the country, right? I get it, and so we are where we are. But I would just point out, Piers, that a lot of the people who are being deported, again, didn't come over illegally. We're not talking about people that crossed the Rio Grande. We're talking about either children, DACA kids that got brought here by their parents. We're talking about people that overstayed visas. Donald Trump and J.D. Vance have made a bunch of people illegal that weren't, because they came through asylum. Either Joe Biden or George Bush or Obama or even Trump actually himself in the first term gave people from a lot of countries, Venezuela, Cuba, etc., asylum, temporary protected status, Haiti. This was a big thing during the campaign. And so now they've taken away their status and they're like, self-deport or we'll deport you. So these people didn't come illegally. Like, they came through a legal process, and now we've got ICE agents and apparently former Superman actors are going to jump out of vans and nab them and hold them in deportation cells. That's
Did y'all hear that? He said former Superman actors are going to jump out. Do y'all hear this? Clown and Dean. I find it all so interesting.
It's insane. Like, that's not how you act in a free country. So no, I do think in a lot of these cases it is different. Like, a lot of these situations are complicated.
All right.
And they've tried to come legally.
They are. There is no doubt it is complicated. Dean, over to you.
Tim, I don't understand why you have to go, a former untrained actor. I'm not untrained. I've been a sheriff's deputy for almost 10 years. I've been a sworn sheriff's deputy and a reserve police officer. So I don't know why you're saying untrained. And by the way, when you join ICE, they train you. So to say that and try to denigrate because I'm an actor, I shouldn't be able to be concerned about what's going on with our borders or with our law enforcement agencies is denigrating. It's ridiculous. Should I say because you're a former Republican strategist, you have no say on anything? That's baloney. So first of all, discounting that, making a cheap joke, just like John Oliver or Bill Maher or anybody else. Let me finish my sentence. Let me finish my sentence. Let me finish my sentence, please. Let me finish my sentence, please. denigrating somebody because they're doing this because of what they used to do or what they do, or whether they're an actor or a writer or a newscaster is ridiculous. It's an ad hominem attack. It's wrong. And there's been over 100,000 people who have put in applications for ICE. So clearly there is a desire for people to step up and serve this country.
Dean, if you show up at someone's, you said on Fox that you'd be that you would, if they sent you in, you'd be happy to jump out of a truck and go apprehend people. So if you show up at the door of someone's home as an ICE agent, which you're an ICE agent now, do you know what rights they have?
I'm not an ICE agent yet.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so you are an untrained former actor. You are an untrained former actor. I am a former actor. I'm
a former professional football player too. So when I run down my resume, I mean, so it's stupid.
I'm just telling a fact.
Yeah,
you're untrained.
Denigrated as though it's something negative. You denigrate it like it's something negative. Like you know what you're saying. So quit trying to gloss over it. It's ridiculous. It was snarky and it was stupid.
I'm telling you why it's negative. You don't know the job. You don't know the job. That's why it's negative. It's nothing.
You don't know that I don't know the job. You're just assuming. You didn't. Did you know I was a law enforcement officer?
I just asked you. Do you know what migrants' rights are? If you show up to someone's house as an ICE agent, do you know what rights they have? Do you know?
Have all the due process rights of anybody in this country.
Okay. So do you need a warrant signed by a judge to apprehend somebody?
This is ridiculous. I'm not a sworn ICE agent yet.
You were saying you were happy to jump out of vans and start apprehending people. You were bragging about that.
I will. And then you made it, of course. And I would if that's what the director asked me to do.
I'm going to say. Hang on. I'm going to say, of all the arguments to use against Dean Cain, I do find the kind of constant sneering that he was Superman and an actor. I do think that's irrelevant, actually. He's perfectly entitled as an American citizen to train up to be an ICE agent should he want to. And as he's made repeatedly clear, Tim, he'll only start being an ICE agent when he's completed that training. So I don't think the fact he's been an actor or a footballer or Superman or anything else makes any difference. The fact he's been, as he said, a sheriff and other things in terms of law enforcement actually makes him more qualified than most citizens to train to be an ICE agent. And if he wants to be, then what's the problem? Why should we use his background as a stick to beat him with?
I can answer that, Piers. Are you not concerned that ICE has decided that they're just going to go on this recruitment campaign and start leveling up the amount of agents that are going to be masked going into Hispanic communities?
Well, no.
Let me tell you all something. That is a shame, but guess what? A lot of those Hispanic people voted for Trump. A lot of those Hispanic people, in fact, voted for Trump. I bet they're regretting it now. They're crying in the car. And the fact of the matter is these ICE agents jumping out, not identifying themselves, wearing masks, getting out of unmarked vehicles is very dangerous. That's a good way for somebody to get seriously hurt. Okay, because the first thing I'd be thinking is you're trying to rob me, okay, abduct me or something. So that's all crazy.
I think all that just shows is that not
hang on the
we want trained people. We want trained officers. This is very hard. This is hard work, and we got to respect people's rights. And ICE is not doing that.
But nobody
and just leveling up really quick.
All right, but two things.
People is not great. It's not.
Pierce needs to shut the hell up because, first of all, he doesn't even live in this country. Okay, he needs to be quiet.
Not going to help. That's a real concern. That's a legit concern that people who are not trained are going to be doing these jobs.
Sure. Two things I would say by way of response. One, I've not seen any evidence that people are going to be poorly trained to be ICE agents. They'll be
and you also haven't seen any evidence that they're going to be highly trained. Shut your arse up, Pierce.
Recruited
ICE's behavior so far and trained.
Well, but you're talking about trained ICE agents.
This is all disastrous, okay? All disastrous. Now, with that all being said, racist arse John Leguizamo is quite offended, okay, that Dean Cain wants to work for ICE. Here's what he had to say about it, too.
What kind of loser volunteers to be an ICE officer? What a moron. Dean Cain, your pronouns are has been.
That joker said his pronouns are has been. I am so through. John Leguizamo is racist himself, by the way, for anybody who didn't know. Yeah, he absolutely is. Pay attention.
This has to be the most racist administration in the history of this country. Maybe they were worse. But the fact that they're killing DEI, affirmative action, taking away the Voting Rights Act, now attacking universities if they hire Latinos and blacks because they're trying to prove that we don't have the same grades of equal. But then if that we're trying to make the playing field fair, then you're going to Texas and gerrymandering the power of Latinos who are 40% of the population of Texas. How is that fair if you're giving our power to white people? Huh? And then you took this land from Native Americans and genocided them. So should you be giving the land back if we're trying to make everything fair? Giving back what people deserve? Huh? And then we Latinos contribute $4 trillion to the GDP. But then you're defunding our public schools? Wait, I don't understand how this is fair. I don't understand how this is all equal. It seems like you're just shifting power, money, and wealth, taking it from people of color, Latinos and blacks, and giving it to white people. Is that what you're trying to not say you're doing?
Yeah, he's clearly butthurt by it all. Okay. Clearly butthurt by it all. Now, with that all being said, do you all remember Gerald Jerome? Gerald Jerome, the guy who played in the movie When They See Us. He played Corey Wise. Okay, from the Central Park Five. Now, mind you, he won an Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actor in a Limited Series movie. But John Leguizamo and other Latinos were saying they weren't represented. But I'm sorry, didn't he represent them? But I guess because he's darker skinned, you know, because there's a lot of colorism in the Latino community. So because he was basically darker skinned, they didn't even acknowledge him. Okay, so John Leguizamo, sit down somewhere and go cry in a bucket. All right, that's what you can go do. Now, I want to tell you all about this. Did you all hear about, hold on, let me find that. Likes up, everyone. Please like and share. Thank you in advance. Did you all hear about, yeah, here it is right here. This is what I'm looking for. So Trump's son, Barron, has a friend, okay, who's a social media influencer. And he was bragging about how he got this black guy, this African. He was actually bragging about how he got this guy deported by ICE. Did you all hear about this? Now, this happened about a month ago. Now, I just heard about it. Here it is right here. Okay, let me just pull this up. Yeah, one of my subscribers, Kevin, sent me this the other day. And I find this interesting because at the end of the day, Trump is just doing the absolute most. Now, his son's friends are telling him who the hell to deport. Okay, I want you all to pay attention. Now, listen to this. Kabi Lame detained. Conservative influencer Bo Loudon claims that he reported the TikTok star to the authorities. Now, if you ask me, I think he did this because he was envious of this young man, because this young man was making millions on social media with millions of followers. And Bo Loudon is a whole hater, is what I do believe. Okay, and then he bragged about it. I want y'all to pay attention, okay? This is what he did, and Trump allowed him to. So, conservative influencer and friend of President Donald Trump's son, Barron, Bo Loudon, claimed the credit for TikTok star Kabi Lame, or Lame, I think it's Lame, his detention by immigration officers, stating he reported the Senegalese Italian creator to authorities before Lame was forced to leave the country. Y'all hear this? Yeah. Loudon, age 18, claimed in a post on X that he worked with Trump's ICE to have Lame removed from the United States, stating that he discovered he was an illegal who overstayed an invalid visa. In other posts, Loudon slammed Lame as a far-left TikTok star, although Lame does not post political content and his political views are unclear. He doesn't know if this man's far-left or not. Lame, age 25, was detained by ICE at Harry Reid International Airport in Las Vegas on Friday. Okay, a Department of Homeland Security officials told Forbes this information for overstaying the terms of his visa. Now, Lame was granted voluntary departure, which allows immigrants to avoid a deportation order, and has since left the United States, according to DHS officials. Okay, though they did not specify where he went. Lame was born in Senegal and moved to Turin, Italy, with his family as an infant, and he is an Italian citizen, according to the DHS. So Lame's exact whereabouts are unclear, but since the weekend, he has posted multiple Instagram stories with the location tagged as Sao Paulo, Brazil. Early Wednesday, Lame posted a video to his Instagram from a soccer game in Sao Paulo. He has not addressed being detained by ICE on his social media profiles, but Lame is the most followed person on TikTok. Okay, the hate is real. He has more than 162 million followers. He boasts large followings elsewhere, including 80 million on Instagram and 12.5 million YouTube subscribers. Lame rose to fame as a TikTok creator after he lost his job during the stupid 19 pandemic, during which time he began posting content mocking absurd life hack videos and other comic bits. He has held the title of most followed TikTok user since June of 2022, when he surpassed creator and dancer Charli D'Amelio, who, by the way, Charli D'Amelio got famous because she stole that little 14-year-old black girl at the time, stole her dance. Y'all remember that to the song Renegade? Okay, talk about cultural appropriation, but I digress. So weeks before being detained, Lame attended the Met Gala in New York. Now, Loudon is a conservative influencer. This is the guy who got him deported, okay, or aided in it. Loudon is a conservative influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers on his TikTok, Instagram, and X profiles. Loudon has said Barron Trump, 18, is his best friend, and he's a regular visitor of the Trump family's Mar-a-Lago property, according to pictures shared on his Instagram. Loudon has claimed on X that he and Barron helped connect Trump with influencers as part of an effort to reach Gen Z voters, including Aiden Ross and Bryce Hall. Loudon is the son of Gina Loudon, a conservative commentator who co-chaired the Women for Trump organization in 2020, and John William Loudon, a former Missouri state senator. So Lame's detainment comes amid growing protests targeting ICE across the United States, particularly in Los Angeles, where protests broke out over the weekend after authorities detained dozens of immigrants. Trump has clashed with Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass over his decision to send National Guard troops to quell protests against officials' wishes. National Guard troops have already arrived in the city, and Trump has ordered hundreds of Marines to the city, which could reportedly arrive as soon as Tuesday. Officials and some legal scholars have challenged Trump's authority to mobilize the National Guard, although Trump reportedly said in a memo that he had invoked Title 10, which permits the president to call on the National Guard if the U.S. is invaded or is in danger of invasion by a foreign nation. Now, y'all see how Trump just does whatever he wants? Okay, because this makes no sense. So the U.S. was invaded by a foreign nation. Well, of course they weren't. Or if there is a rebellion or danger of rebellion against the authority of the government of the United States. So I want you all to pay attention to that part. In case of a rebellion, who are they talking about when they talk about a rebellion? Well, that would likely be us. If we ever decided to rise up, and fight for our rights or anything like that, or start, assembling, okay, to demand things and all of that. Please pay attention. So anyway, since protests broke out in Los Angeles, more demonstrations have taken place in cities including New York, Dallas, and Atlanta. This is all a mess. Now, Lame is one of the highest paid social media creators, according to Forbes estimates. In 2024, Lame ranked 10th on Forbes' top creators list with estimated earnings of $20 million achieved through his large social media following and brand deals with Fortnite, Sony Pictures, and Walmart. He was named to the Forbes 30 Under 30 Europe Arts and Culture list in 2022. Okay, so like I said, this young man was clearly hating on him. That's all that was, if you ask me. Okay, just a whole hater. All right. Now, here he is bragging about how he got this guy deported. Hold on, let me get an overlay.
You actually played a role in that deportation?
Yes, I had some buddies who worked closely with him on several major contracts and things. They were all telling me that there's several red flags with this guy. He admitted that he was in the country illegally on an expired visa and entered the country like 49 times. And so I just flagged it to a buddy of mine in the administration at Homeland Security. And next thing you know, they gave him till June 1st to self-deport, but he didn't do that. So he ended up getting physically deported or moved from the Las Vegas airport on June 6th.
I saw that. He was in Vegas, where I'm at.
Yeah, he was headed to Miami for an event, but he wasn't able to make it. I got a lot of hate and a lot of backlash and death threats and that kind of thing. But, I noticed a lot of people were like, hey, thank you, because I came to this country legally. It was a long and excruciating process, and I'm really glad that you're looking out for the little guys. We have a celebrity that's abusing his celebrity status to break our laws. We can't do that.
Now, here's the problem with that for me. I could see if the guy was a criminal. I could see if he was a whole thug, if he was out here committing crimes and whatnot. I could see. But how can they make it make sense when he's a law-abiding person? He's making his money and all of that, but yet Trump allows in a person from Venezuela who murdered 3 people in cold blood, premeditated, lay in wait, and then in fact killed the wrong person, mind you. Okay, that's right. VM says Melania should have been deported. Exactly. Exactly. Okay. But, here's the thing. Here's the thing. As I told you all, this is all a smokescreen, but Trump's own people are still talking about the Epstein files, and I'm still talking about the Epstein files. Trump, nobody's going to forget about this. You can't fool us with your BS.
But K-File's extensive reporting now shows the two shared a close social circle for nearly 2 decades, from private jet flights to high-profile parties, and that's only part of the story. Photos, flight logs, and court records help reveal how long their personal history really was. K-File's Andrew Kaczynski is here with all of that, and it is some extensive research and reporting that you all did. You've chronicled this relationship between Trump.
Goodness Raider Bo said, but the internet is international, sweetie. He's still making money. Yes, I know he's still making money. That's how he got to Brazil. But the point of the matter is he wanted to be in the U.S. and he was taken up out of here. And though he wasn't a violent criminal, he wasn't breaking the laws or anything. Well, I guess he broke the law by being here illegally. But the bottom line is, didn't Trump allow those people from Ukraine to come here? Okay, didn't he allow them to come here? And didn't they get government benefits, which they weren't supposed to be entitled to? So I'm just saying it's all selective outrage. And Trump is targeting people who are heavily drenched in melanin. That's my whole point. And that young man, because he's friends with Barron Trump, should not have any say-so in who gets to stay or go in this damn country. That's my point, beloved.
And Epstein from the 80s to mid 2000s is obviously when their contact probably cut off. What's the most striking thing that you find that kind of contradicts this? Donald Trump is no fan of Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, so what we found, it really actually paints a portrait starting, as you said, in the 1980s up to the mid 2000s. It paints this portrait of a long, enduring friendship. I think there were several associates who have called them best friends. Epstein himself said that he was Donald Trump's closest friend for 10 years. And we looked through these hundreds.
Exactly, Jay McClinton. He did allow these white South Africans over here, and one of them murdered his wife when they got here. Okay, one of them murdered his wife when they got here. I don't hear Trump talking about that with his stupid self.
Hundreds of hours or hundreds of hours of video, hundreds of photos. We went through documents from court files, exhibits from lawsuits. So we really chronicled this whole relationship through time. And one thing that I found really interesting was these flight logs from Epstein's private jet, which were part of that investigation into Ghislaine Maxwell. And they really tell you a story of how close these guys are. Look at just a few of them. This is in 1993, for instance. This is the same year that we found as well that Jeffrey Epstein attended Donald Trump's wedding to Marla Maples. Trump flew on that plane 4 times with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell between Palm Beach, where Mar-a-Lago is, and where Epstein also owns a home. Let's fast forward then to 1994. Trump flew from Palm Beach to Washington, D.C. with his then wife, Marla Maples, his daughter, Tiffany, and a nanny before they returned to New Jersey that day. In August 1995, just he and Eric were on board with Epstein and Maxwell. Again, they flew from Palm Beach to Teterboro in New Jersey. And then in January 1997, Trump flew with the pair from Palm Beach to Newark, New Jersey. All of these trips, 8 in total, were documented in logs that I mentioned were from that trial.
You also took a look at what Donald Trump himself has said about Jeffrey Epstein. What did you find?
Yeah, that's right. And one of the things that's always been so striking is that quote that he said in 2002 that we found in that New York Magazine article where he said he was a terrific guy, he liked beautiful women just like him. And then that quote where he says he likes many of them on the younger side. That was from an article entitled Jeffrey Epstein, International Money Man of Mystery in New York Magazine. Now, just 2 years later, we were going through Donald Trump's book, and there he had one called How to Get Rich. And then we wrote in his book that somebody named Mysterious Jeffrey had called him, and that you could see it right there. That's the passage from his book. He says Jeffrey calls in, but there's actually a lot of activity between these two in 2004. One of the things that was seized from Jeffrey Epstein's home during that initial investigation to him in the mid-2000s were message pads. And on those message pads, there were two, if you look here, 2 messages from Donald Trump in November of 2004. This is around the time the two of them actually were competing to buy a property in West Palm Beach. Trump ultimately won out. He beat Epstein, and this is allegedly part of what made their relationship deteriorate.
Yeah, Donald Trump's talked about that as well. Your review also, I mean, you looked also through tons of photos and tons of video of Trump and Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell together from Mar-a-Lago to here in Manhattan. Walk us through kind of some of those moments that you found.
Yeah, Kate, and these images, they really speak for themselves. In November 1992, there's an image that a lot of people have seen, and it's of Trump and Epstein, and they're dancing there. You can see with models. I think you can see Ghislaine Maxwell in the background if you look. She was there just a second ago. Just a year later, we had found, or previously, Epstein was at Trump's wedding in 1993. That's the photo there on the left. 1997, you can see in that photo on the right, that's them at a Victoria's Secret Angels event. And then in 1999, this that I found in some archives shows Trump and Epstein, and they're actually chatting at a Victoria's Secret fashion show. In 1997, he was also photographed with Maxwell at a fashion show. These guys attended a lot of fashion shows together, it looks like. And then in February of 2000, there was an event in Mar-a-Lago that featured not only Trump, Epstein, and Maxwell, but also Prince Andrew was also at this event, and these images were initially published in the Palm Beach Post in the year 2000. So,
and let's not forget, they said Prince Andrew was also present there. Let's not forget how Trump lied and said he didn't even know who the hell Prince Andrew was. He never met him and all that stuff, lying self.
There's a lot of public appearances, and it definitely undercuts Trump's claim that he was not a fan and they were sort of just distant acquaintances.
So what is the president saying about this?
So we reached out to the White House. We asked them about all of this, and it's on CNN.com. If you read the timeline, it's very extensive. They didn't respond to any of the detailed questions that we sent, but Stephen Chung, who is the communications director for the sent along a statement, said, quote, "The fact is that the president kicked him out of his club for being a creep." So it's going to be interesting to see, because he says they weren't close. He says he was not a fan, but we continue to just see more and more revelations come out.
Yeah, and we've heard that similar statement from Stephen Chung many times about questions that linger. It's great to see you. Great reporting as always. Thanks, Andrew. A key figure in the Epstein case, who later worked for President Trump, could soon be called to testify under oath. Alex Acosta was the prosecutor who infamously gave Jeffrey Epstein a sweetheart deal in 2000.
This is the guy that I told you all about yesterday. If you recall, I told you how the Trump appointee, Alex Acosta, right there on the screen, how he gave Jeffrey Epstein that sweetheart deal. Okay, he only served 13 months. This is the guy I was talking about yesterday. And then Trump defended his foolishness.
2008, a deal that allowed Epstein to serve minimal time in prison. and a deal that shut down the federal investigation into his alleged sex trafficking ring. Acosta then went on to serve as Trump's first-term labor secretary. For reasons unknown, Acosta, the man who would know everything about the Epstein case, was left off the House Oversight Committee's list of subpoenaed witnesses. But tonight, a Republican on that committee, Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, is telling the Palm Beach Post that calling Acosta to testify is not, quote, off the table. She also says at any time he can be called to testify. I'm going to speak to the top Democrat on that committee in a moment about plans to subpoena Acosta, because
y'all hear that? Y'all hear that? They want to subpoena him. Okay, and this is a Republican that's saying it. So, like I said, Trump's own party is still talking about Epstein. Trump, you're not getting off the hook here. Okay, try though you may, you're not getting off the hook. We're not going to forget what he said. All right, we're not going to forget it. He said he was going to release the list. Now he wants to skirt his responsibilities, promise Ghislaine Maxwell a pardon before he leaves office, allegedly, put her in a cushier prison so that she doesn't, in fact, drop the receipts on him, the same receipts, mind you, that she offered to Biden to secure herself a pardon. But Biden had the wherewithal to know that if he did that, it would be absolutely frowned upon because she's a whole S trafficker. And she, in fact, in my opinion, is worse than Epstein was because she's the one who pretended to be so nice and sweet and caring and then lured those young women or young girls, because they were teenagers, lured them to Epstein and his friends to be taken advantage of. Yeah, she never needs to see the light of day as far as I'm concerned.
even though dozens of victims had come forward at that point, Acosta, as I mentioned, let Epstein off easy, allowed him to plead guilty to just 2 prostitution-related charges. Epstein served only 13 months in a county jail and was allowed to leave the jail nearly every day for 12 hours. The Department of Justice review later found that Acosta exercised poor judgment in the case, although he continued to defend his actions years after the case was closed.
There was value to getting a guilty plea. You can always look at a play after the fact and say, should it have been the safe play or should you have gone for the big score?
This comes as President Trump is, many think, trying to change the subject from Epstein as he threatens a full-on federal takeover of Washington, D.C. But it's Trump's own party who won't let Epstein go.
Okay, I told y'all, yeah, they won't let it go, and nor should they. Trump is a whole fool. Okay, and just pay attention to how not only was he connected and had close ties with Epstein, but all of these other nefarious people as well, like Prince Andrew, whom he claimed that he didn't know, like Jean-Luc Brunel, okay, who also turned up dead in his cell, and like Alex Acosta. And I'm pretty sure, this is just my opinion, but I'm pretty sure that Alex Acosta received a nice sum of money from Epstein to get that sweetheart deal. Okay, I'm pretty sure that's what went down.
The American people are sick and tired of this government holding on to all these secrets. They're sick and tired of being lied to by the intelligence community and by a deep state. I hope that we don't have to wait 60, 70 years to find out what really happened when it came to Jeffrey Epstein.
Kristen Holmes is out front at the White House for us tonight. Kristen, just as President Trump was trying to shift attention to D.C., his takeover of the police department there, members of his own party are making Epstein front and center again.
They are, Kate. And just to be clear, I mean, President Trump, the White House, they don't want to be talking about this. And you talk about how he's been shifting the narrative. Of course, we've seen this happen time and time again as they've tried to get away from this story. But they were just starting to see some success in that. I mean, it had been over a month of them being on the defensive when it came to the Epstein story. And I was actually told that they were starting to circulate some of our polling that we put on air of how the searches for the Epstein case had dropped down, and they were sending that amongst themselves to try and show that there was no reason to insert this into the narrative again, to bring up the Epstein files and any kind of conversations about the transcripts between Blanche and Maxwell, something, of course, we had been reporting on that they were considering. And now you have Republicans themselves coming out and saying, why don't we know more? Talking about subpoenaing Alex Acosta. And even the vice president himself over the weekend in an interview bringing up Epstein again. I mean, most of the people who responded to that interview responded with release the Epstein files. So they're having a hard time actually getting away from the story. But I can tell you, they want nothing to do with this. And the hope is that, of course, with this DC takeover, with the federalization, with the fact that they are so focused on that, and then moving into the Putin-Trump summit at the end of the week, that they can try again to move away from the story. We'll see how successful they are.
Yeah, try again, I guess. Kristen, thanks so much for the reporting tonight.
Yeah, he's trying everything he can. He's trying everything that he possibly can. And then speaking about the Putin summit, they're saying that's motivated by Trump's ego. Okay, that's what they're saying about that. So they're supposed to have a virtual meeting. Hold on, let's talk about that for just a second. We're about to wrap it up in just a few minutes, guys.
The president is expected to participate in a virtual meeting today with Ukraine's leader, Volodymyr Zelensky. Zelensky is in Germany, and the meeting will be hosted by the German chancellor.
Now, pay attention to how they said, a virtual meeting. Honey, Zelensky doesn't want to come back to that White House after the way Trump disrespected him the last time.
It comes 2 days before Trump's Alaska summit with Vladimir Putin. And he's calling that a listening exercise. That's how Trump's team is talking about his approach ahead of that one-on-one with Russia.
Look, only one party that's involved in this war is going to be present. And so this is for the president to go and to get, again, a more firm and better understanding of how we can hopefully bring this war to an end.
Ukraine's president will not be there, but Zelensky is making it clear he won't cede any land to Russia, and he must have a seat at the negotiating table moving forward.
We will definitely have a trilateral meeting at the level of leaders. I don't know the date. If we want to end the war, it will happen.
To prepare for the summit, President Putin spoke Tuesday with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, who's been supplying Putin with troops. Putin and Trump will be meeting Friday at Joint Base Elmendorf Richardson on the north edge of Anchorage. Some of the locals don't seem too excited about that.
Having a world leader with such a high body count is unsettling.
It's an opportunity for us to demonstrate against Trump when he's here.
I think it's an interesting meeting, although it seems kind of like it's none of our business.
Former CIA military analyst Jeffrey Edmonds joins the group chat. Thanks for being here. So we
D Major Scaling Up says, I don't blame Zelensky. I wouldn't cede land to a thug either. I like Putin. I like Putin. I actually like him a whole lot better than Trump. Trump's the thug, beloved. He's the thug, okay? That's the real thug that we need to be concerned about.
heard this concern about the land, right? When this war is over, where will be the borders of Ukraine and Russia? And I also recall that the president, eked out a resources deal with Ukraine. Is all of this conversation around land and resources?
I think that one of the misunderstandings that the administration has had going into this all along is that Putin just wants land, that he wants the Donbass. But that's just not what this is about. That's not why he invaded Ukraine. He invaded Ukraine to demilitarize Ukraine, to denazify Ukraine, and to really conduct regime change. And so as long as that hasn't happened and Putin thinks he's winning, and he is, then you're not going to see any kind of meaningful peace deal come out of a land deal.
If you think Putin is winning, what do you think is the point of this meeting?
I think that Trump is trying once again, and other presidents have done this too. They just really have this belief in the sheer power of their own personality to bring Putin around, right? He seems very reasonable in person, someone you can deal with. He's pragmatic, or at least he seems that way. But in general, every single president that has tried this has been disappointed in the
I want to bring something to the group. During his campaign last year, Donald Trump was talking about his ability to end wars. And he's always had his eye on ending the war in Ukraine. Here's how he talked about it.
That is a war that's dying to be settled. I will get it settled before I even become president. If I win, when I'm president-elect, and what I'll do is I'll speak to one, I'll speak to the other, I'll get them together.
He believes in that need-to-need conversation, that it makes a difference. It has not worked with Putin. Am I misreading that?
No.
Oh, this show is easy then. Thank you for being here. So what are you thinking as he's going into this summit?
As we've seen, the expectations for this keep on getting downgraded. And I think the White House has set this up because they want to show some movement. He likes spectacle. We saw when he met Kim Jong-un, the head of North Korea, in his first term. That was a lot of spectacle that really didn't result in any kind of meaningful change. And so I think that at this point, it is a very dangerous situation that we're in because Vladimir Putin is not your regular run-of-the-mill dictator. This is a man who is in charge of a very large country, who has killed an inordinate amount of people. And he is very clear on his objectives. And I am not very clear on what President Trump's objectives are.
I think there's a very simple answer to that, which is you can never go wrong thinking that it's ego. That the thing that it's clear that I think Donald Trump wants out of the second term is a Nobel Peace Prize. And in sort of conflict after conflict this year, we've seen Donald Trump sort of declare that he was the one who settled it. Even though in cases like India and Pakistan, that has puzzled the people who were actually engaged in the conflict when he declares victory in settling the conflict. And so I think this is spectacle, as Lulu says, but it's also, I think, part of what he views as sort of his grand ambition of being a peacemaker.
Jeffrey, every time I feel like someone showed me a chart when the president speaks with Putin kind of on the phone, afterwards, Putin would like bomb Ukraine, basically, a little bit more. So what are you going to be watching for out of this Friday meeting and beyond?
I think that you're not going to see any change in what Russia's doing right now. They're slowly making gains in the East. The attacks that they conduct against critical infrastructure is the way Russians fight. They've talked about this for decades.
But more aggressive. Like we've seen their use of drones increase. We've just seen
Well,
like
as much as he can, as much as they can actually increase what they're doing, because it is a huge resource drain for Russia to conduct this war. But I think you will see an increase. I don't know that the increase comes simply because he talked to Trump, but what you won't see is a decrease because he's talked to Trump.
And should I read anything into that conversation with North Korea? I mean, we've been talking so much about how Trump prepared for the meeting, and I think it's notable that Putin's preparation, involves a resource of troops and otherwise.
Right. So there's been from the standpoint of Russia and North Korea, there's been a useful exchange of goods, really. North Korea providing soldiers to Russia to push back against the Kursk, the earlier mission that the Ukrainians conducted inside Russia, but also there's technology transfer between both. That's become even more important given the situation in Iran. Russia was getting a lot from Iran. There's less now. And so Putin's going to get help from wherever he can.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is finally getting an invite to a critical meeting about the fate and future of his country. It's just maybe not the centerpiece sit down he'd hoped he'd be brought in on. Today, President Trump will meet virtually.
Okay, so now you guys listen. Let's talk about these immigrants who were paying $200, okay, to get driver's licenses in Kentucky, knowing darn well they don't know how to drive right, okay? I heard causing all kinds of accidents, I'm sure. Okay, let's get into it. Like stuff, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. Thank you in advance.
Didn't want this out. Fraud inside Kentucky's transportation cabinet. Licenses issued without a driver's test.
It is an ongoing WDRB investigation, and tonight we hear from a whistleblower who says coworkers used her login to pull off this scheme.
The employees were being paid underneath the table.
They say sometimes
I need to let my supervisor know about it.
truth hurts.
Did you ever think that this would cost you your job?
No,
And for Melissa Moorman,
I was angry for a long time.
this is one of those.
It hurts me that I'm talking about this and I actually like where I was working at.
Times.
I came into the office that day. My computer was shut down. I was told to go to the front door. Detectives came in. They interviewed me. That was it.
Moorman says she was fired 3 months after she sent this letter to the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet, blowing the whistle that workers at the NIA Center licensing branch were selling driver's licenses under the table to people who never took the driver's test.
Undocumented.
Y'all heard
How did
that?
it work? What was going on?
The undocumented workers would come into the office in groups. They would provide them either permits or driver's license illegally. So they will bypass without even taking the test.
How much?
Hold on, let me read a couple of comments. D. Major Scaling says, to be clear, I have issues with Zelensky and Ukraine, but at the end of the day, Putin is being a bully. I'm sorry. You think he's being a bully? Maybe he is. I just think he's doing his job. I don't like Zelensky or Ukraine. Jay McClinton says, Putin released Black Jesus to the world and it shook America, LOL. Yes, absolutely. I loved every minute of it. Okay, I loved every minute of it. You all remember I did a video about that on the backup channel, honey. I'm down for Putin. Sorry, D Major Scaling up.
$20 a person.
Up to 5 times a day, she says.
Was this an everyday thing?
Almost, yes.
I first reported on the driver's license fraud investigation in April after getting my hands on one of the state's revocation letters. We learned the transportation cabinet sent more than 1,500 of them in 5 months, telling drivers their license was issued in error and must be returned or they could be criminally charged. At the time, state officials confirmed at least 2 terminations and ongoing state and federal investigations focused on the NIA Center in West Louisville and the E-Town license branch. But they denied all of our records requests, withholding 2,300 documents on the fraud. Moorman's story fills in the blanks.
I found out it may have been going on for a couple of years before it was found out.
We're told it wasn't as simple as people getting state-issued driver's license or permits without taking the test. She says 2 of her colleagues at the NIA Center approached her with a business venture, asking if she wanted to get in on the scheme.
I was asked to bring certain customers in, and they are brought in to me without signing in. And you would scan their documents as usual.
Documents made to look legitimate, like birth certificates and social security cards, according to the letter she wrote to the state. But a key to pulling off this scheme was making sure the required Homeland Security screening was never run.
I start getting these emails saying, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this?
And that's where it unraveled. She says those workers were using her login, a password she says her bosses made her share, as all workers at the driver's license branch did not have their own. Moorman was training to be a supervisor.
I'm not even at my desk because I'm doing various duties, or I'm not there for the day. So, things start kind of coming together. I'm like, what's going on?
Was it always undocumented workers?
Yes.
Every time?
Every time.
It does not surprise me.
Adrian Trivedi helps people trying to obtain legal status, an immigration attorney for 14 years.
For those immigrants that don't have a pathway to obtain legal status, having a driver's license could mean the difference between getting home from work safely, to their children, to their wives or husbands, and not for a relatively small price to be able to have that chance of avoiding deportation, even just for that day. They're willing to take it.
To Moorman, this license scheme exploited people.
I didn't want no parts of it.
Moorman says she wrote this letter with her boss on October 29th, and she spoke to detectives 3 months.
I hope that she sued them. Okay, she wrote this letter. It says, I was approached by an outside source to go into a business venture that would take place at KYTC DDL office. Someone will have birth certificates, social security cards, statements, and bills that are made to look legitimate. They will come into the office with a fast pass and go straight to the individual desk without being checked in. Would set up as normal, issue customer, and scan the documents as normal. They would not pay you directly for the transactional as they would pay you directly for the transaction as normal. However, additional payment will be made to the individual for the service. I refused the offer for this business venture. I was advised not a good idea after several inquiries to make a decision. My 3,200 was being used as part of this business venture at several locations, even when not in the office or at my station issue. Another source has approached me recently and asked if I was still interested in the business venture and advised was not interested, mentioning 2 employees at the NIA were recently let go under a similar suspicion.
Months later, she was fired the same day.
Gut punch, yes. Very hard gut punch.
She was 2 years and 3 months onto the job, but she didn't technically work for the state. Mormon was a contractor for Quantum, a staffing agency that Kentucky hired to help fill positions in driver's license branches when they took licensing away from the county clerks.
Please record your message. When you have finished recording, you may hang up.
Mr. Van Staten, this is Gilbert Coursey from WDRB News. The Michigan-based company did not return our calls or emails. It hung up.
It's shocking. Why would an employer punish and take retribution on an employee that reported this wrongdoing?
Mormon story, now the heart of a whistleblower lawsuit going after both the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet.
She should be a hero.
And Quantum Solutions.
Yeah, she should.
There's a failure to supervise these employees. There were obviously no checks and balances.
Kentucky State Police is on it. There are serious concerns, and we'll hold anybody accountable if they violated the law.
That's basically all Governor Andy Beshear would say as we pressed on this case in April. But there was a part of our interview that didn't make our prior report, and it may be important now. Is there an immigration component to this?
Not that I'm aware of.
WDRB is fighting in court for the paper trail to be made public, uncovering who knew what and when. Sometimes the truth does hurt.
I was hurt and depressed.
But Melissa Mormon believes
I really would like to get my job back.
It will set her free.
The Transportation Cabinet has a deadline this week to respond in court on why it withheld every single document, 2,300 records from our request. We will keep you updated.
All a hot mess. Now that woman needs to sue them, okay? She's talking about she wants her job back. Honey, I would not want my job back. First of all, the way they did you should not ever want to work with them again, in my opinion. And I'm sure she needs the money, but I would just go elsewhere. I would not even trust it, okay? Because go back there if you want, and then all they're going to do is find any little reason to get rid of her legitimately. That's what they'll likely do. So she should absolutely be filing something with the EEOC and suing them, honey, because there are protections against for whistleblowers. Okay, there's protections that that stop people from firing or mistreating or retaliating on whistleblowers. And that's what she needs to do. That's right. Measurement says wrongful termination. Exactly. Okay. So anyway, with that all being said, I have one more thing for you guys, and this is your lifelines for today. Okay. This is your lifelines for today. I came across this story and I thought it was very important to share this and talk about it because I had not heard about this type of flu, and this little 8-year-old child died from it. Okay, so an Indiana family is mourning the sudden and heartbreaking loss of 8-year-old Liam Dahlberg, who died just hours after complaining of a simple headache, a symptom that tragically turned out to be the beginning of a very rare and deadly brain infection. Parents, please pay attention. Liam's mother, Ashley Dahlberg, told 13 WMAZ that her usually energetic and upbeat son came home from school in April with a mild headache. But by the next morning, it was clear something was seriously wrong. She rushed him to the hospital, where doctors quickly diagnosed him with Haemophilus influenza type B, also known as HIB, which is a fast-acting bacterial infection that can lead to brain swelling, meningitis, and even death. Okay, and this is very dangerous because this type of influenza is not a virus, it's actually a bacteria. Now, despite being vaccinated against HIB as an infant, Liam's infection had already spread rapidly. An MRI showed and revealed that the bacteria had covered his brain and his spinal cord. Poor little thing, his spinal cord. This is also sad. Basically, at that point in time, there was nothing that the doctors could do. This is so heartbreaking. When I read this, I was like, So sad. This poor little child died within less than 24 hours after he complained of the headache. Okay, so sad. I'm going to go to the video of what his mother had to say because this is heartbreaking and parents need to know about this because, like I said, I never heard of it. Okay, I never heard of it. This is the little boy right here, Liam. May he rest in peace, and condolences to his family, friends, and loved ones. Bless his little heart.
Hemorrhoids. They're painful, irritating, uncomfortable. Worst of all, they're just.
Tonight in Indiana, mom is using her grief to warn other parents about a bacterial infection that killed her son within hours. Now, this is something most kids are vaccinated against when they're babies. Tonight, our Logan Gay shares what it is and this mom's plea to other parents.
This is not your typical everyday flu.
She's talking about Haemophilus influenzae, also known as H flu. Doctors say it's a bacterium, not a virus, and it's extremely deadly.
We later found out that he contracted invasive Hib, and anybody that contracts it usually dies within 24 hours.
This is so heartbreaking. I hate to hear this. DJ Big Six said, how do you prevent this? Through vaccinations, beloved. Through vaccinations. And he likely got this from a child who wasn't vaccinated against it, they say.
That's what happened to Ashley Dahlberg's 8-year-old son, Liam. She says it all started when he came home from school with a headache in April. By the next morning, he was being rushed to the hospital. The normally lively child left barely responsive.
And they took him for an MRI, and that is when they discovered the amount of bacteria that was covering his brain and his spinal cord. And basically at that point in time, that's when there was nothing they could do.
All of their lives changing in the blink of an eye.
Oh my God.
I would never wish
So
this
sad.
kind of pain on my worst enemy,
Bless his
ever.
heart.
To have sat there and listened to the doctor say you did everything right, but there was just nothing we could do. And then to lay there with him as they took him off life support, and I could feel his little heartbeat just fade away. There's no words that can describe that pain.
Dr. Eric Yancey is all too familiar with H flu.
All the way up to the mid 70s and early 1980s was absolutely devastating. If it didn't kill the children, within a very short period of time, it left many of them with significant complications.
Complications, he says, pretty much ended when the vaccine was created in 1985. He says Liam most likely contracted H flu from an unvaccinated person, maybe even another child.
We pretty much had it under control, and that we just didn't see that many cases of it. But over the last few years, the immunization rates have continued to fall.
Now, Dahlberg is urging parents to make sure their children are all properly vaccinated.
I feel I have failed my child because I could not protect him from everything that would cause harm.
Harm that can never be undone. In Lowell, Indiana, Logan Gay, 13 News.
Oh, that was heartbreaking. Absolutely heartbreaking. No parent should have to go through that. And then dead in just less than 24 hours. So sad. But they're talking about the vaccine rates have declined. Well, I'm sure that's because of stupid 19 and that pandemic and the venom that people just simply didn't trust. And so, like I said, prayers and condolences for his family. Now, here goes D Major scaling up, talking about Queen, supporting Ukraine isn't about whether we like Zelensky. This is about America's national security interests. Sir, please explain to me, if you can, how the hell does supporting Ukraine or our government sending all of these billions of dollars over to Ukraine, which they have, and Zelensky's nothing but somebody who feels entitled and thinks that the U.S. is supposed to always back him up with this, that, and the third. What is he going to do for the United States, beloved? How does this have anything to do with our national security interests? Please explain, because I have no clue. Please put it in the chat. I'll wait. I will absolutely wait, because at the end of the day, listen, I'm sorry, but I don't give a damn about Ukraine with all those wanton supremacists they have living there. Let's not forget how they did the Africans over there, okay, when all of the mess started, okay? Let's not forget how they did them. Talking about we need to think big picture, not just our feelings. This has nothing to do with my feelings, honey. I'm talking with logic. Okay, I'm talking with logic, honey. It's always the facts over feelings for me, beloved. Okay, I don't care about Zelensky or Ukraine. All right, I just don't. But I want you to tell me what that has to do with our national security interests. I would like to know. And then they let all them Ukrainians over here also, remember? So I'm waiting. Likes up, everyone. Please don't forget to like and share. What do you have to say, beloved? What do you have to say? Ha! Andrew said, D Major, do you realize that Ukraine was part of Russia, right? Exactly. And they need to give it back. Okay, that's why Putin's on their arse. They need to give it back. All right. Putin is much more better than Zelensky. That's all I'm saying. Okay, we the people said F Ukraine. I'm rooting for Russia too. Thank you. I'm rooting for Russia. Are you? Exactly, honey. Okay, I'm sorry. I just can't get down with them. I just can't do it. Okay, but here's the thing. You know, the policymakers in the United States, they try to frame Ukraine as directly tied to the United States national security interest. Okay, but are they really? Are they really? Okay. At the end of the day, Ukraine borders NATO. Okay, NATO member states like Poland, Slovakia, Hungary, Romania. Is that what you're talking about, beloved? Is that what you're talking about? Because here's the thing. If Russia was actually to absorb Ukraine fully, it would just move its military presence right up to NATO's eastern flank. Okay. And then U.S. security doctrine, or the core U.S. security doctrine from World War II, that basically has been used to prevent hostile powers from dominating Europe. Is that what you're concerned about? Is that what you're concerned about? Because the U.S. is worried about Russia's invasion as a violation of international law. But I'm sorry, you know, I'm not worried about any of it. I'm just not. Okay? I'm just not. They basically think that Ukraine would how can I put this? They basically look at, and I'm talking about the US, they're looking at Russia's invasion as a violation of international law. And I feel like the aggression of it all against Ukraine could embolden other adversaries like China and maybe Taiwan. So here's what I think. I think that the United States has already given Zelensky enough billions of dollars. They've already aided them in firearms and all types of militarized weapons and whatnot. And if Zelensky hasn't been able to beat Russia, he needs to sit down somewhere at this point. That's all I'm saying. D Major Skillet said it's a violation of international law. Yeah, I just said that. I know it is. At least that's what the United States seems to think. At least that's what they seem to think. But nonetheless, Nene said they can't win. No, they can't. Measurement said the bank is closed. It is. Now the bank's gone. Okay. The bank is closed. And D Major Skillet said just like Israel's actions are a violation of international law. Well, you know, it is what it is. I'm still not down for Ukraine. I don't care what the United States says. I don't. Okay. And D Major Skillet, here's the thing, beloved. Instead of worried about the international laws being broken by Russia whipping Ukraine's arse, shouldn't you, in fact, be more concerned about what's going on with our own people right here in the midst of the debacle that Trump has now put out there, okay, with the federalization of Washington, D.C. and the possible militarized takeover of Oakland, California, no less. Okay. Jay McClin said it's a money laundering scheme. We need to stop funding this work. Thank you. I agree. I agree. You just said Taiwan belongs to China. They're both the same people. Absolutely, they are. Absolutely, they are. Andrew said, Queen, what a great point. That's just like another Project Paperclip for the Nazis. Exactly. Thank you. Exactly, beloved. That's exactly what it is. How did that come? Miss me with it. Okay. Because see, here's what I don't do. I don't allow the United States government to demonize and vilify people, you know, and tell me what to think and how to think it. That's what I don't do. Okay. That's what I don't do. Because these are the same people, the same country that sat there and talked trash about what was the guy's name? Oh God, how did I forget his name? How did I forget his name? Y'all know who hold on. I'm talking about the guy from Cuba. Why does his name escape me? Y'all know who I'm talking about. What's the guy's name from Cuba? He's now deceased. Castro, Fidel Castro. That's who I'm talking about. How they sat there and had us, thank you, Easy. How they sat there and tried to have us all hating on Fidel Castro. When that man was literally helping Malcolm X, gave Assad Shakur political asylum and all of that. Okay, because America doesn't like him. They want to say he's a dictator, the same thing that Trump clearly is. I'm sorry, but America is so full of bullshit, in my opinion. And at the end of the day, they are nothing more than hypocrites. They go to foreign lands, try to tell people, you know, how to deal with their people and to give them, show them humanity and complain about inhumane treatments of their people when they do exactly the same thing to people who look like me in this country. Okay, so I don't buy into the bullshit when America is sitting here trying to tell me, specifically the American government, when they're trying to tell me who I should and shouldn't support. Okay, I don't support Ukraine and I'm never going to, and that's just what it is. A bunch of wanton supremacists there, and that is what they are. Okay, Putin can keep his boot on their necks as far as the Queen is concerned. Okay, he can keep his boot on their necks as far as I'm concerned, beloved. D Major Scale Up said America is full of BS. I agree, but two things can be true at once. Well, you know, the second thing that's true doesn't apply to me because I don't care. Okay, I have no concern of it. I have no concern for it, period. At the end of the day, I like Putin, and that's what it is. All right? If Putin does anything to America that's nefarious, guess what? It'll likely be America's own fault. It'll likely be America that instigated it, is all I'm saying, especially when we have a clown, a whole thug, a would-be mafia boss, if he could, by the name of Donald J. Trump in office. Okay? And Putin, by the way, somebody put in the chat earlier that Putin's playing him like a fiddle. He absolutely is. Okay? It's not hard to do because Trump's a whole idiot. All right? Fusion says, exactly. U.S. overthrown the Black Queen of Hawaii. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Queen Sam said the J is for janky. This is all hilarious. Jay McClin says, what the media tells us is propaganda to push a narrative forward. Exactly. Okay, Nini said Putin has exercised restraint when you think about it. Of course he has. D Major Skellen said, we are Americans, Queen. Yeah, but do they treat us like Americans, beloved? Do they treat us like Americans? No, they don't. When they start talking about Americans and patriotism and all that, they're not talking about us, beloved. They are not talking about us. Yeah, D Major, you're the one that said that Putin's playing Trump like a fiddle. Yes, he absolutely is. Okay, as he should, because Trump's a whole idiot. All right, he's a whole idiot. I'd play him like a fiddle too if I were Putin. That's what I would do. And the crap that he tried with Zelensky, see, Zelensky doesn't get any respect from me. Okay, he didn't even let Trump didn't even show him any respect. All right. At the end of the day, I dare Trump to try that with Putin and see how that turns out for him. I bet you that won't work so well. Okay, so I'm sorry, but I don't have respect for Trump or Zelensky. Okay, I just don't. So anyway, I have nothing to say, nothing good that is, about Zelensky or the Ukraine or Trump. Andrew says, D Major, if you studied the Ukraine, you would never be talking like this. Okay, you better tell him. Okay. D Major Skeleton, I'm gonna need you to sit down, beloved. Okay, I love you, but I'm gonna need you to take several seats right now. It says, I appreciate the discourse, Queen. You're very intelligent and thoughtful. Well, you know, so are you, but we just agree on this because I am not fooling with Zelensky. Okay, he can go put on those tight arse leather pants and heels that he had on with that fishnet shirt and do that same little twerk dance that he was doing last time I checked. That's what Zelensky can do as far as I'm concerned, okay? That's what he can do. Easy said Ukraine is full of Nazis. Exactly. Neo-Nazis. Exactly. Nini said the same thing. A bunch of racist Nazis in Ukraine. Exactly. So I'm sorry, Putin, keep doing your thing. Okay, keep your boot on their necks. Shout out to Putin. Okay. Oh, let me stop messing with D Major scaling up. Let me stop messing with you, beloved. But I am serious, though. That's really how I feel. Okay, that's exactly how I feel. Measure Man said that part. Okay. Now, with that all being said, I'm out of here. Listen, I love you guys to life. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Y'all know they have the poor little old queen shadow band. Okay, I'm over here trying to do the best I can do, but they just won't let me be great. Okay, they just won't let me be great. Oh, no. Hold on, guys. Hold on. Easy said, Queen, can you do a quick Trump impersonation? Well, you know, I just might. Maybe I will before I'm out of here. But listen, I have one more thing to tell you guys. There was a New Brunswick cops who shot and killed a black 68-year-old senior citizen. Okay, a black woman, and then lied about it. I want y'all to pay attention. I almost forgot to tell you all that story. Okay. All right, I want y'all to pay attention. And listen, the last time I talked to Trump wasn't even trying to show Zelensky any respect. Okay, Zelensky lets Trump walk all over him, embarrass him publicly, humiliate him. But Trump bows down to Putin. He bows down to Putin, don't you, Trump? Don't you, Trump? No, I absolutely do not. I don't bow, I don't bend, and I don't break. I have no fear of Putin. As a matter of fact, I called Putin just last night and I told him, knock if you buck. I have no fear of Putin. He's going to bend to my will. He's going to do what I say to do. At the end of the day, you know, I've already shown and exercised my power and authority over Zelensky. Zelensky's trash. I wouldn't even feed him McDonald's. I wouldn't give him a cheeseburger. I kicked him out of the White House, and I'll do the same to Putin if he gets out of line. Now, I'm going to end this war, and that's that. And Queen Ahmadiyyah, if you don't like it, you can move to Costa Rica. Isn't that where you've always wanted to go? And take those nefarious royals with you, specifically D Major scaling up, since he wants to vouch for Ukraine. Okay, sit down somewhere, D Major scaling. Now, let's talk about this last story, and then I'm out of here. So this is really sad, though, seriously. This woman was 68 years old, and I want you all to pay attention, because had this been a Caucasian woman, 68 years old, that they took out, can you imagine the outcry? A whole senior citizen. So let's get into it. This happened in New Brunswick, New Jersey. City police shot and killed a 68-year-old woman inside the high-rise senior apartment building where she lived. Multiple sources have identified Deborah Terrell as the woman who died in the altercation, which took place at 8 a.m. on the 4th floor of the John P. Fricano Towers, located at the corner of New and Nielsen Streets. Now, born in 1957, Terrell grew up in that very same neighborhood long before the apartment building opened in 1983. She moved into the high-rise in April of 2022. But shortly after 10 a.m., New Jersey State Police detectives were on the scene, requesting permission from the building management to search Terrell's apartment and other areas of the 4th floor in the 14-story 214-unit building. The Office of New Jersey Attorney General Matthew Platkin issued a statement around 5:16 p.m., indicating that the agency's Office of Public Integrity and Accountability was investigating the incident. Platkin's office declined to answer questions about the matter, including whether the call was handled as part of the Arrive Together program that he so championed. Okay, that initiative pairs police with certified mental health screeners and crisis specialists to respond to 911 calls involving behavioral health incidents. So here's what they say. According to the preliminary investigation, officers from the New Brunswick Police Department were dispatched to an apartment building on Nielsen Street in response to a complaint that a resident was walking around with a knife in the hallway. It was the second time that police responded to the building for similar calls that morning. Now, the first call had come in around 5 a.m., according to sources. They say both times Terrell was in her apartment by the time police arrived. The first time police left after knocking on her door and getting no response. But after responding to the second call, the situation escalated. The Attorney General's statement says police verbally engaged with the female resident before she exited the apartment with a knife, and officers encountered her in the hallway. Officers used pepper spray and a taser on the senior citizen, according to the statement. Then one PD officer deployed his service weapon, striking the woman. According to sources, 2 to 4 shots were fired by the officer, who authorities have not yet identified. And we all know why they haven't identified him, okay? Residents who knew Terrell expressed outrage and suspicion after seeing the AG's office statement, which was posted on the New Brunswick Today Facebook page. They said she didn't bother nobody. This is what one person said. I knew this woman over 30 years. She always stayed to herself. This is bogus. I knew her for about 30 years too. This is what another person said. She used to babysit my daughter. Sweet woman, never bothered anyone. Now, other questions about why police used 3 different weapons on the senior, such as pepper spray, a taser, and a handgun. Okay, people wanted answers. Someone said, my sister weighs 120 pounds. This is what her sister, Linda McCullough, said. Okay, saying that she's not stable on her feet. So once they messed with her, that wouldn't have been it, or that would have been it. Now, the city's 2 public information officers did not immediately respond to requests for comments from the city's longtime mayor, Jim Cahill. The 7 elected members of the city council also did not immediately respond to similar requests. So Cahill has presided over the city's government since 1991. And during that time, 4 residents, all of them Black, mind you, were killed by gunfire from New Brunswick police. Sean Potts, Sissy Adams, Barry DeLoach, and now Deborah Terrell. In all 3 of the prior cases, county level prosecutors presented evidence to grand juries in Middlesex County, and the shooters did not face any criminal consequences. Now, on June the 30th of 1991, Sergeant Lane Gray shot and killed Sean Potts, supposedly by accidents. Do you hear that? In an alley between 2 homes on Redmond Street. September the 10th of 1996, Officer James Consalvo shot and killed Carolyn Sissy Adams on Power Street, with Consalvo saying that Adams bit his finger and reached for his gun. Probably lies, but let me continue. The part about her reaching for the gun. Now, maybe she did, but I've seen many cases where police lie and say that after they shoot somebody. September 22nd of 2011, Officer Brad Burdell shot and killed Barry DeLoach after chasing him into a Throop Avenue backyard, where Burdell claiming DeLoach was attempting to attack his partner with a wooden stick. So each time the killings led to massive protests around the city calling for justice. The Middlesex County Prosecutor's Office impaneled a special grand jury after Burdell shot and killed DeLoach, but no charges were approved. The city government ultimately agreed to a $300,000 civil settlement with DeLoach's sons to settle a lawsuit they brought against the city over the killing of their father. So that just lets me know that it was not justified. Because if it was justified, why did they give $300,000 to the family? Burdell resigned from the force rather than face punishment for administrative violations. Now you hear this? Resigned. Clearly was in the wrong. Okay, and didn't want to face punishment, including failing to carry his pepper spray and baton with him on the night of the shooting, because he could have used either one of those as opposed to shooting the person. So as we reported, Burdell was also paid more than $125,000 in taxpayer funds while he was on leave after the shooting. He reportedly received an accidental disability pension worth $50,833 per year, and now works as a security officer at Matawan Regional High School. Terrell's death marks the first time that someone has died at the hands of the NBPD since the adoption of a 2019 law requiring Attorney General's office and not county prosecutors to handle investigations of fatal encounters with cops when the officers are acting in their official capacity. The law also requires the matter be presented to a grand jury to decide if anyone will be charged with crimes and put on trial. But they likely won't. Okay, they likely won't at the end of the day. And like I told you all many times, they can absolutely indict even a ham sandwich. So when these cops are not being indicted, it's because they purposely don't want to. Okay, they purposely don't want to. Okay, so please pay attention. Now let's go to this video about it because people are ticked off.
Don't scroll. Real quick, just listen. Yesterday, August 8th, 2025, the New Brunswick police shot and killed my best friend's mother. They received the call that an elderly woman was wielding a knife walking throughout the hallways. Mind you, this is a senior center we're talking about, okay? To give you context. They were talking to her behind the door. Eventually, she opened the door. I guess she approached with the knife. They pepper sprayed her, tased her, and then at some point, a police officer felt the need to utilize his lethal weapon, shot and killed her. Mind you, this is a 67-year-old woman. There may have been mental illness at play. Regardless of the fact, I don't understand why multiple police officers couldn't subdue a 67-year-old woman with a knife to the point where they needed to kill her. Crazier part about all of this is the police department isn't trying to give the family details. The details that I just gave you is a report that I found in a news article online. They're telling the family that it may take up to 8 months for the complete investigation for them to get the details of what actually happened. Honestly, I don't even feel like the need to say this. This is 2025. How many times have we seen this story before? You feel me? But now it's super close to home for me. So I'm gonna need your help if you're seeing this. I'm gonna get some more details. Y'all stay tuned. But this gotta stop, y'all.
Okay, and I don't believe the police because there was another person that said that the police were lying. Okay, said they were lying about some of the things they claimed happened. Okay, so this was a 68-year-old woman or 67-year-old woman. This is absolutely sad. Prayers and condolences to her family, friends, and loved ones. And here's the thing. At the end of the day, 67 years old and they couldn't detain her. I mean, why didn't they just taser her? Why did they couldn't subdue her with the taser to get her off of her feet so she could drop the weapon if she even had one? They couldn't do that. And then pounce on her and put her in handcuffs. They couldn't do that. Yeah, I don't believe them. Okay, I don't believe them. I think that if she did have a knife, and she likely did, because probably due to mental health issues or something, but when they saw her with a knife, they probably instantly started shooting, because that's what they do to people who look like me. They probably immediately started shooting. And here's the thing. Why did they need to shoot her 4 or 5 times? I'm sorry, make it all make sense, because we all know that on the videos I've shown you where they shoot people who don't look like me, they don't shoot them to kill them. They don't empty the clip. They don't shoot them multiple times. They shoot them once to disable them. Sometimes they don't shoot them at all. And they end up losing their own lives because they give them so much benefit of the doubt. Sitting there talking to them, calling them by their first names as if they know them. Okay? So I'm sorry. This is all a load of BS as far as I'm concerned. Like I said, again, condolences to the family, friends, and loved ones of this poor elder. This is absolutely outrageous and egregious. Okay? And so anyway, with that all being said, listen, I'm going to conclude this broadcast. I love you all to life. I hope you all enjoy the rest of this beautiful day. Each one teach one. That's how we grow and thrive. Do something productive, constructive, but never destructive. And always remember, beloveds, to keep the Most High first in your lives. And I do intend to come back later today at about 6:30. Okay, so if you don't get the notification, check the channel. Okay, check the channel. For those of you who I send the links to, because I have your email, I will send out the links. But I'll be back later on today, okay, at about 6:30. So anyway, keep that in mind, and I hope you tune back in. And I will talk to you all again soon. Peace.
With that gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you're done. They show no love for the queen. Why you hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans? I got dreams like King Luther, shed blood like Kunta. You ain't helping my people, I ain't got nothing to say to ya. I want all the smoke like hookah. Talking reparations, America won't be great until they give us compensation. I'm like, I'm the hottest right now. See a bunch of lames out here trying to jock on my style. They be doing too much. I'm the queen, it's too easy. It's like they all at Popeyes, how they be talking so greasy. I just sit back and laugh while these haters get madder. So nefarious how they don't want my pockets with cheddar. I tell them they can do better. These snakes in the grass can leave a bite on your ass, cause y'all be trusting too fast. I got my foot on the gas, other one on they necks. Dropping receipts on haters, you better show some respect. I'm never facing regrets, we only facing the threats. Running through every challenge like a relay, break no sweat. It's a cold game, so I got that blanket with me. Now that my people awaken, ain't no going to sleep. I do not play by my piece, this time I'm playing for keeps. You talking slick, but when I see you like them ends, we gon' meet. And I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got gold all in my skin, God all in my blood, kings all in my circle. You touch one of mine and you done. They show no love for the queen. Why they hating on me? Is it cause I'm free and I got Malcolm X in my jeans and I got